to go live.
Okay.
I pressed it. Okay, we are live.
Whoa.
Hello, everybody.
That was a really like short gap between pressed it to live.
I know. I don't know how it decides. Sometimes it's like 3 seconds, and this time it was half a second.
Wow. Maybe it's because my internet's better.
Could be. Your internet is incredible. You uploaded that patron cast, and it was like a minute, and that would normally be like an hour.
That would
I'd
be
be
that
like,
would be at least 25 minutes, probably more. And I'd probably like accidentally close my laptop at one point, and then it would have to like start over or mess around. Yeah.
I'll bet you the live show experience for people is going to be a lot better today with your incredible internet. Also, your incredible that Look at this guy.
That wasn't supposed to happen.
No, it was
That's
so good.
incredible.
It was really good that in that
I thought you were
moment.
teasing me.
No, I thought it was good, and then you just messed with it. It was like the perfect. Oh, and what is happening? Everything was great. Stop moving it. It was really good. What is happening? Oh,
Well,
now I can't even. Okay,
okay, there's my
that's
hair
good.
back to you think this is cool?
Yeah, it's cool. I like when it's spiky at the front. That's kind of the style I like to go for.
Yeah, but this is like a little much.
No, it's good. That's what you
Like
want.
reaching like Kramer.
Look at me. Look at me. I look at the camera, please. I can't
I see
even.
you.
No, look. I
Oh,
want to
like
see
oh,
you from
okay.
your. Okay. Yeah, it's good.
All right.
I would like
I'm
put one side up like a little more. Like I would want to even like what like it's like kind of like sloping down a little almost. Like one. Yeah, anyways, yeah, that's great. That's really good.
I can't you're screwing with me.
I think it's really good.
You
Ask
think
chat. Chat, let me know if you agree with me. I think it looks cool.
absolutely
No.
not.
Oh, okay. Bring it down to like nerd. It's like the lower it goes, the more nerdy. And then the higher it goes, the more like cool surfer
I
guy.
think okay, I think this is your perception, not reality.
All right. I'd
But
love
I'd
to
love
get some comments in the
I'd,
chat. All right, let's
our
start
Pete,
the
our
show
Pete,
here.
let us know. Our
Our
Pete's gonna
Pete.
tell us. Our Pete
Oh, the
number
one who writes
one.
first.
Our Pete was number two once.
He
That was a
blew it that
crazy
week.
day. That was nuts. I can't believe that happened.
It happens. Yeah, you gotta be on top of it to be number one. Actually, no, anyone can do it. All right, so let's start the show. You ready? Oh, hosted by two guys who um like to think everyone's an all-star. I don't know. What's a good all-star joke?
Yeah, I like
I
that.
think everyone's an all-star. All of our listeners are all-stars. Okay. It's kind of corny, but okay. All
Yeah,
right.
so Shams has answered, and like it is the correct answer. Like I think you have a dated idea
Look,
of
man.
cool hair.
The thing is, like in high school, I wasn't that cool compared to now. I'm very cool.
I
So
mean, if I wore my hair like that in high school, then maybe people would have liked it, but I don't think.
you were very popular in high school, right? Weren't you like student council? Like you were getting elected to like high positions in the
Does
student
one
council?
mean the other?
Yeah, I mean, they're not going to vote for you. Have to get people to vote for you. How are you people going to vote for you unless they like you?
I don't know.
I
You just
remember
have to
always
like
thinking like
make
you
a
were so
funny
cool.
speech. You just make a
Yeah, it's
funny
great.
speech. I've never
That's
been
what
cool.
likable people do. I don't know. Maybe I had the wrong impression. I always assumed we didn't go to the same school, but I just from knowing your accolades, I remember thinking
Mm.
like Brian must be so cool.
Oh, I don't
Otherwise, I
think
don't even know if I
so.
would have been friends with you
Cool
if you
people
would have.
aren't on student council.
I don't know. My high school, the coolest people were on student council,
Mm. The
from
spikiest
what I
hair head
remember.
was on student council.
I'll bet you there was some spiky hair, but okay, we should do this show. Okay,
Sometimes, like, I'm in schools often. I'm in high schools, and they
yeah.
have
What's the
pictures.
cool hair right now of the student council?
Oh, I don't know. I think it's like messy and big, I think.
Mm.
But but you see like like every year they take a picture of like their presidents, their like school council presidents and put them on the wall. And so like you can follow like from the 60s based in most schools, up to present
Hmm.
day. It's a really fun trip through high school fashion every time. It's
You
fun
know
to see.
Steve from Stranger Things?
No.
He's like the main kind of like not like one of the kids, but like one of the main like teenagers, I
Is
guess.
it Timothy Chalamet?
No.
Is he in Stranger Things?
No, I don't
Do I
think
have the
so.
wrong reference?
But I don't know, Steve, I don't know, when you said like his like big and like kind of like I don't know, I think of him like he has really cool hair.
Okay.
Uh, for what it's
And
but
that's
also
a
that
show
show's supposed
set
to
in the 80s.
it's set in the 80s, but I think it's like looks cool for now, to be
Yeah.
honest. Like I think actually his hair is like not realistic for the 80s. It's more
Yeah.
just like he looks cool now, in my opinion. Not that fanboy over Steve Harrington. But okay, so
I don't
shall
know
we
who
do
that
this?
is.
That's the name of the character. I did the full name, Steve
Where's
Harrington.
Mr. Haskins these days? Speaking
Steve.
of
Oh,
Steve H's that we know. Oh, I
I
just
would love. I would give anything to see what he's up to.
oh
Friend
man.
friend from the
Why was he
past.
posed with sunglasses once looking tough? What show was that for?
Should we should probably start this show. Okay?
I'm just
You good?
Googling him.
Just okay. You also like named him. Now we're gonna have our slew of fans. What was the name of the person who always says number one? It says first.
Kucherov?
No, the
Oh,
one
Pete.
our Pete is gonna be all over this, like looking
I
up,
think I found him.
harassing our friend. Okay, let's do this.
Oh, I see a picture.
Yeah. Sorry, what?
Sorry. Go ahead.
Okay. Yay! Yes! Welcome everybody to another episode of the Keeping Karlsson Fantasy Hockey Podcast, the longest running fantasy hockey podcast in the world, hosted by two guys who think that all of our listeners are all stars. That's the best I got. Okay, I'm your host, Elon Dubrovsky, and with me for this jam-packed all-star weekend episode, it's been a couple weeks since we've gotten together to do a show that wasn't just for the patrons. It's my very good friend, the IPP MVP, the fantasy hockey robot, the poobah prognostication. It's Brian Cum. Brian, how's it going?
Hey, I'm good. I'm enjoying my all-star break. Well earned. I didn't make the team again this year, so I get a nice little vacation, but it works well for me. I'm happy to be back with you on the mega show. We did a patron cast last week, so we're kind of, we've kicked off the rust, but to the listener, to your ear, we're going to kick off your ears rust or our rust. We're happy to be back. Thanks. Let's shout out the Dauber crew for the fantastic episode they did last week, and Blake for leading the charge, and all the everything that's been on the feed all year long, and especially in the last week. While you and I have rarely have been on like away and unavailable at the same time, that might have been a first. So anyway, we're happy to be back. Thanks for listening. We hope you're back. Like this is a diehard time to be listening to the show. Right. This means you're already prepping for next year, or you're still in it this year. And we appreciate your commitment and dedication to your fantasy hockey team and keeping Karlsson.
Yeah, definitely. Thanks for listening. I mean, there's always the chance that we'll look at the numbers next week and turn out no one downloaded this episode, and that'll be a bummer. But hopefully, someone's listening to us talking right now. I did a really fun show with Jeremy yesterday. For those people who are looking to the future, Jeremy and I broke down the playoff schedules for the fantasy playoffs in a special edition of Matchup Maximizer. So definitely, if you're in a situation where you think you're going to be making the playoffs in your league, that's an episode you really need to listen to, because it's never too early to start prepping, right? Especially if you know you're like locked into a playoff spot. Who even cares about these next few weeks? You got to get the guys that are going to give you games when it counts. So check that out. But okay, Brian. Oh, and you mentioned the Dauber writers that came on last week. That was incredible. You can check out all their great work and all the great work at dauberhockey.com. We're very proud to be presented by them. Here's the plan for today. We're going to talk about three major news items that have happened since the last time we were doing this. Then we're going to look at all the hottest and coldest players in the league according to Frozen Tools, an awesome site from Dauber Hockey. Right on the front page for every single team, they list hot and cold players. So I think it'll be just be fun now. It's been a bit of time since the NHL's had some real games. We'll go and see, going out of the All-Star break, who are the hottest and coldest players. But yeah, let's start with the news. Obviously, we've had two big trades, the biggest between the Flames and the Canucks. So Elias Lindholm is going to Vancouver, and Vancouver has given up on Andrei Kuzmenko after benching him. And I don't even know if this is like, I'm curious if this was like a cap dump, like, in order for the Flames to have gotten all these other assets, they also had to agree to take Kuzmenko, or if he was considered an asset. Maybe it was close. But yeah, it's Kuzmenko. It's this prospect called Hunter Brzezowicz. I probably blew that, but apparently he's like pretty good. Yoni Yermo, a first, conditional fourth, all for Elias Lindholm. Let's start with Lindholm, okay? Because he goes to a situation which on paper seems like really incredible, right? Because Vancouver is scoring so many goals. We've seen Pius Suter on the top power play recently and going off. Just getting in the top six and getting on the top power play in Vancouver, like kind of nobodies, no offense, Pius Suter, are going off. So like imagine Elias Lindholm, who's going to, I'm sure, join that top power play, take the Kuzmenko spot, be with Pettersson, with Besser, with JT Miller, Lindholm. You'll have Quinn Hughes. Wow, what a high-powered power play. Plus, the word has already been out. The coach said that Pettersson and Lindholm are going to start on a line together. So like like on paper, like I said, everything looks incredible. You want to jump on this guy anywhere if he's a free agent. I mean, of course, like don't even listen to us. Like pause right now and add him if somehow he's a free agent. But of course, on the flip side, Brian, I always think to some lessons I've tried to learn over these past couple of years about players who go to new teams. And I'm like, oh, this is incredible. Because don't forget, like Lindholm's not having a great season, right? He's only on a 54-point pace, his worst pace like since like in Calgary, right? The only time he was worse was back when he was in Carolina. And I'd love to be like, well, now this is the change that he needs to get back on track. That's what I thought about Taylor Hall when he was on, bad paces in Boston. He got to Chicago. We thought it was a sure thing, and it didn't work out so well. So that would be the potential risk. But like, I'm curious to know, like, how concerned are you, or is this just like a clear Elias Lindholm stocks to the moon? This is going to be incredible for him and for the Canucks.
I think it's good for I think it's good for Vancouver. I really don't see anybody really suffering or anyone with name value consistently. Like you already named like Pius Suter and Dakota Joshua, who might be find themselves a little less in the loop than they otherwise would have been now that Lindholm's in the lineup. And I feel like this could maybe reset Vancouver to the dynamic that they had last season, where Horvat was in the mix until he was traded. And now they kind of have a Bo Horvat. Like, I'm not going to draw a direct line between Horvat and Lindholm, but I'm going to say like there are similar skills available and positional abilities. And so I see offense being able to be evenly distributed now through the lines. And I also expect that no one's really going to be harmed who was already scoring. So if you're worried, like Brock Besser, Pedersen, or Miller, like someone's going to lose a little because of Lindholm, I don't think so. I think Lindholm just happily slots in up top on the top power play and somewhere in the top six and is able to do some good things. One thing about Elias Lindholm, by the way, if you haven't noticed, like this year, he's due. There's a couple things going wrong for him this year. All right, the first is that he is owed regression. His shooting percentage is way down this year. He's shooting less than 5% when generally over the last 5 years, he's shot like 12 or 13%. So
This
there's
is an even
one,
strength, I assume.
this is at even strength. So that should all come back. One other thing that should help with Lindholm moving to Vancouver is that his line sucked in Calgary. Like the way his line performed in Calgary, like I don't know if it was the system or the line mates or the, building chemistry, whatever. It was not working for him. He was down basically a full expected goal for 60 minutes compared to the last couple of years in Calgary. And I think immediately in Vancouver, he gets a bump in line mate quality. And I like maybe the system is just going to work out better. So there's a couple things that really haven't been working in Lindholm's favor that I think are beyond his control. You mentioned 5-on-5 specifically, Elon. On the power play, Lindholm has also found like had a bit of a hard luck situation. Fewer of his shots are hitting the net than last year, even though he's attempting about the same amount. And he's only scoring on 10%, which is like worse than his usual 5-on-5 shooting percentage. So now Lindholm on the power play, I'd hope if he gets enough of an opportunity that he can start cashing in on some of the goals that regression hopefully owes to him. So if Lindholm, he hasn't been having the greatest season, right? So if somehow his value's down, if you're in a shallow enough league where he's available, this could be a moment where Elias Lindholm is able to turn his season around by virtue of the folks around him, the new people around him, the new system around him, and just the natural regression that we would have expected anyway.
Yeah, Mason is saying in the chat, I guess, like, yeah, it seems like it's almost like too good to be true. Like, it seems like he should be in a great spot. Mason is bringing up that he thinks there's only room for one forward to get power play points along with Pedersen and Miller. Kind of like what the Dauber writers were talking about last week about how, like, John Tavares hasn't been getting as many power play points. And someone brought up that, like, well, maybe Nylander is kind of taking his spot, like, getting those points in the power play. Maybe, like, Besser or Lindholm now have, like, competition of who's going to get those power play points. Maybe it's something to watch. Maybe this could be bad for Besser, but, like, very hard to say. I guess we'll have to see how this power play shakes out. But it seems like it could be good, but I am keeping that little tinge of doubt. Like if I have Lindholm and let's say I could get like a really huge offer for him, like a sure thing person that like nothing is changing about them and there's no reason to expect them to slow down, maybe you take that versus like holding this guy who could be incredible, but like, you never know. You might not click. Maybe he and Elias Pettersson, for whatever reason, just don't play well together. It's possible. It's happened before. It's not like like Kuzmenko. Kuzmenko was in that spot, and obviously he's a very different player than Lindholm. And so, anyways, who knows? We should talk about Kuzmenko though, going to
Sure.
Calgary. And
Yeah.
oh yeah,
One thing I was just sorry. I just
yeah,
want to
please.
like say it's not fantasy relevant, but I'm struggling, and I think you are too, with now Elias Pettersson and Elias Lindholm on the same team. So if we get the wrong pronunciation of Elias or Elias for the player, please, we're gonna work on it.
Yeah, I mean, we could probably just say Lindholm, right? People will know we're not talking about Hampus Lindholm, and we could just say Pedersen, and people will assume we're not talking about Marcus Pedersen. So I feel like they do have other players in the league with the same last name, but hopefully people will, maybe that'll just make things easier. Easier. I was about to say easier, but okay. So
Uh-oh.
okay, Kuzmenko. Andrei Kuzmenko had that incredible year last year, buoyed by a really high shooting percentage. This year, he actually, people may forget, he like started like looking pretty good, right? He was pacing for around 70-ish, a month and a half into the season. And then all of a sudden he started getting scratched because I guess he was making defensive lapses. And next thing you knew, also the points started to dry up. Next thing you knew, he was getting bumped off the top power play. And it all ended in Vancouver with only 2 points in his last 13 games. So now Kuzmenko goes to the Flames, but like we shouldn't forget completely. Like this is a guy who did like incredible in the KHL, came over, had success in the NHL. And I don't think there's a reason to expect him to be like totally washed. And I saw a tweet also saying that maybe Calgary's hoping that he could do really well so that they can flip him and get more assets, at the deadline. So I think Calgary's going to be putting Kuzmenko into a situation to succeed. And obviously now there is an opening on the Flames, right? With Lindholm out of the picture. Like in their last game, they were rolling Lindholm with Sharon Govich and Matt Coronado, who had just been called up. So, or I guess he came back from an injury. So Lindholm could end up. So now Lindholm's spot could go to Kuzmenko potentially. Well, I guess he's not a center, so who knows exactly. But like, there could be a spot with like a Sharon Govich with a Huberdeau, maybe with Backlund and Coleman. Like, who knows? But I think Kuzmenko's going to get a decent chance. I could see him getting power play time. That seems to be the one thing that he seems to be pretty good at. So I'm not definitely not as excited about him as like Lindholm, but I would be interested to see what Kuzmenko can do. And so he's definitely someone, if he's been dropped in your league, and he's obviously a lot more likely to be available to you than Lindholm, take a look, take a shot. Like Calgary plays Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday next week. So couldn't hurt to try him out for the Tuesday game and go from there.
Yeah, I think there's a fair chance, as you're saying, Elon, that Kuzmenko is going to find himself in a better position to produce in Calgary than he has in Vancouver. What offsets that is, well, like how many great positions to produce are there in Calgary, and also how much patience does he get from the coach? Like we've seen Huberdeau and Mangiapane get bumped down the depth chart through the season for lacking responsibility or two-way play. So I wonder exactly where Kuzmenko falls. And I'm going to go back to the Bo Horvat situation and say, I wonder if Kuzmenko has like an almost Beauvillier like appearance in Calgary where, he might end up in a solid spot to produce. He may or may not get lucky and start doing it right away. I mean, like this is a talented player, Kuzmenko. I don't mean to take too much away from him. It's just he rarely shoots. Right. And he doesn't seem to be terribly responsible. So both of those things are kind of bad news for fantasy hockey relevance, and that's why I'm sort of down on him. But I think he's at least going to be in a better position to go on a little run in Calgary than he was in Vancouver. And again, like a highly sought after free agent when he came over from Russia. It was big news when Vancouver was able to land Kuzmenko, and so maybe he does have a little more. Maybe the situation just wasn't compatible for him, and he'll find that compatibility in Calgary. So I'm keeping an open mind about it, but I'm also not thinking like suddenly Kuzmenko's been freed and he can be amazing. Because just looking at his numbers from this year, I don't think. I mean, he hasn't been playing a whole lot of ice time, right? He's averaging 14 minutes of ice per night, about 10 minutes of ice at 5-on-5, which is close to, I mean, it's middle 6 minutes at best. So if he gets more minutes, he should be able to be more productive, but he's also not owed a whole lot of regression. And what we're seeing this year is actually regression from that 27% that Kuzmenko shot last year. Now he's shooting a pretty healthy 13%. But for a guy who takes only 1.5 shots per game, the goals will only trickle in at that rate. So Kuzmenko is probably going to need to find other ways to produce and also to prove that he can hang, earn the ice time alongside the other offensive players in Calgary to keep getting a shot.
Yeah. So yeah, don't get me wrong. Like I'm saying there's a chance if I had like Backlund out there in free agency, I think I'd be jumping on him over Kuzmenko, just to give you a sense of like where I'm at with Kuzmenko. But like if Backlund is gone, maybe then Kuzmenko's the next choice of like that tier of guys. Let's go to the other big trade that happened last week, Brian. The Winnipeg Jets and the Habs made a little swap-a-roo. I guess Sean Monahan went over to Winnipeg for a first and a pick, which is pretty wild considering Montreal also got a first to take Sean Monahan from Calgary. So obviously, this looks really smart for the Habs management to have done what they did with Monahan, rehabilitate him, and then swap him. And yeah, Monahan has had a really great season, right? Like he was someone that was just take. I was talking with Jeremy yesterday. Like he was available in my league and free agency, and he was taken even before the trade. Even though Montreal plays Tuesday and then not again until Saturday, Sunday of this upcoming week. But Monahan's on a great hot streak right now. He's got 11 points in his last 7 games. He's been scorching. So obviously Montreal took the great opportunity to sell high. Also, I think it was like once Lindholm was off the table, Monahan maybe became the next most appealing guy that teams were going after. And yeah, he's pacing for 59 points on the season. Not too shabby. Obviously, not the heights that Monahan hit back in his heyday in Calgary, where he even beat point per game once. But yeah, he's having a great season so far. And one nice thing about Monahan right now is that it looks like he's going to be getting a great opportunity in Winnipeg. We've gotten some line combinations today, both at even strength and on the power play in practice. You've got Monahan centering the second line with Ehlers and Perfetti, then with Scheifele, Connor, and Velarde. And then, of course, Monahan is on the top power play. Ehlers not, because that's just how it goes with Nikolai Ehlers. So the top power play in practice today was Velarde, Scheifele, Monahan, Kyle Connor, and Josh Morrissey. So Monahan is like in a great spot. He seems to be back to somewhat of the player he used to be, not like the shell of himself that he was at the end in Calgary, which I'd imagine was a lot injury related. So I feel like the obvious question is like Monahan versus Lindholm. But like, I mean, even if you're going to say Lindholm, that doesn't mean that Monahan. I think Monahan should probably be rostered in most leagues, right? Like this is a pretty exciting situation for him.
Yeah, Monahan seems rosterable, doesn't he? And especially because he's been shooting lately. Monahan has 10 shots over his last 2 games. And keep in mind, this is with a different team now, but it's still something, and something that we really haven't seen a whole lot of from Monahan. In fact, in 7 of Monahan's last 12 games, he has taken 3 shots or more. And this is from a guy who, at best, has averaged 2.5 shots per game. And over the last 4 seasons, has averaged much closer to 2 shots per game than that. So this is like a bit of a new side to Monahan's game than we've seen before. At 5-on-5, Monahan's production seems like normal, like what it's usually been. But the difference for him this year has been playing on that top unit in Montreal with 6 goals and 16 power play points. And like Elon, it sounds like you think that Monahan is going to continue getting that power play production or that power play, that opportunity to produce on the power play. And who
I
am I
mean,
to?
I'm just going by practice today. They were
Yeah,
had him on the top power play, so why not?
yeah. And who am I to disagree? And I'm looking specifically at Monahan's power play output, and I don't see anything like really jumping off the page as being worrisome. Like this can't continue, which is kind of crazy to think that Sean Monahan. He's pacing right now for a career high in power play points. So and last year he was on the top power play. Well, he only played like a quarter of a season, but he's generally been on the top power play and not so productive for the last several years. So it's nice to see him turn it around. And if he holds on to that deployment in Winnipeg, then yeah, absolutely. So I would, if you're looking for a top power play player, if power play points are a category in your league, then you should absolutely consider adding Sean Monahan.
Yeah, and then on the Montreal side, by the way, I'll mention that there was a quote from the coach, I believe, that Alex Newhook is coming back, and that was one of the reasons why they felt comfortable trading Monahan. So if you look at the last game lines, like Monahan was on the top power play with Suzuki, Caulfield, Slavkovsky, and Matheson. I think there's a reasonable chance to expect Newhook to just slot in right there, and then maybe also to center the same line that Monahan was centering with Slavkovsky, and it was Yoel Armia, and with Josh Anderson on the top line with Suzuki and Caulfield, or maybe Newhook bumps like Slavkovsky could go back to the top line. Like, they shift things around a lot in Montreal. But if you're in a deeper league, don't forget about Alex Newhook. And maybe now could be a good time if you can stash him for free and then stash him in your IR and then kind of see how he does for a couple of games. Like Montreal, like I said, plays Tuesday and then Saturday, Sunday. So maybe you grab Alex Newhook right now, stash him. Maybe he'll play Tuesday. You can see how he looks. Saturday you're probably full anyway. See how he looks on Saturday, and then you consider playing him on Sunday. So that might be some strategy you could employ. We'll see. He's
Can I
still a work
can
in progress.
Yeah, still a work in progress, and like the upside is there, and like this would be another sort of Montreal reclamation project, although the one that they've sort of had some time to work with and hasn't taken off, but maybe just because they haven't had the actual amount of ice time to make it happen. Like they've done a great job with Kirby Doc, who's injured, and Monahan, who's now traded, but Newhook it's not fair to write anybody off in Montreal who had some upside, who's getting a fresh start there, even though Newhook has just been on a 46-point pace in the 23 games he's played so far, 13 points, not a lot of power play time, but you're right, Elon. Maybe there's new opportunity for him, but I'm gonna put this out there to you. Instead of adding and stashing Alex Newhook, I'm going to propose adding and stashing a different center on a different team. Can I? Well, yeah, I'll just go for it. How about Barrett Hayton over in Arizona, who Craig Morgan tweeted today? He's practicing today in a non-contact jersey, but he and Matt Dumba should be ready to go Thursday versus Vegas. And Arizona has a fantastic schedule next week: Monday, Wednesday, Friday, Sunday. And so I'm actually adding Hayton over Newhook, and I'm going to stash him. And then if I have another move to make, to while I keep him stashed for the rest of this week, I have him all set to go for next.
Hey, sold. I'm in. But also, like, why not both? Theoretically, I guess depends on your situation. Like, both would be great moves. I think Hayton obviously is someone who's had a lot more success in the NHL. He had a good end of last season. I guess that's actually all that he's done that was successful, but that was enough. This year was rough at the start. Seemed like he just had a really bad shooting luck. I had him. It was very frustrating. I ended up dropping him like right before he got injured, of course. I wasn't able to stash him. Someone else grabbed him and stashed him like a couple months ago, it feels like. But yeah, that's another good point, Brian. So let's take a break. And when we come back, we'll do one other quick news item. We'll talk about the Kings, and then we'll get into our hot and cold players for the rest of the show. Thanks for listening, everyone. We'll be back soon. Wow, no edit points for the whole first period.
Love
Look at
that.
us.
Keep it up.
Okay. Welcome back to Keeping Karlsson. Brian, like I said, one more news item I just wanted to talk about quickly. The LA Kings fired their coach, Todd McClellan. This is a guy who, like, month ago, maybe a month and a half ago, it would be like unthinkable. The Kings were looking so great. Everyone was, I remember we had a patron cast question that we took that, was from, a month ago. And it was like kind of funny just in like the short time. It was like, are the Kings like so great at like protecting their goalies that like they can make any goalie look good? Like look at Cam Talbot now, look at Corpusalo last year. Then all of a sudden, just like the whole defense, I guess, has fallen apart. And now it's led to the coach being fired. Generally, I don't know. I never know like what to really make of it, like fantasy wise, like if anything's going to change in LA. I saw one person on our Discord was suggesting maybe now's a good time to grab Dubois if he's been dropped. Maybe, it could be a situation where a new coach might be able to unlock, because like Dubois has been a star in the league, and all of a sudden this year he stinks. Maybe it just he didn't gel with McClellan, similar to like what happened with Jake DeBrusk all those years in Boston, where he didn't, gel with his coach. So that's an idea, but I don't know. Any general takes? The new coach is Jim Hiller, who I think was just like the assistant coach or something. So I don't know. Anything you're taking away from LA having a coaching change?
The only thing I'll take away is that like it's weird to say they needed it because McClellan was basically a Jack Adams candidate through the first quarter of the season, and then the wheels started falling off. And like Cam Talbot has played a lot worse, and that's part of the equation. But also, LA has also like they deserve some of the blame too. They've been playing worse in front of Cam Talbot, and when they had an almost 60% share of expected goals through their first successful quarter of the season, while they're mired in this current just like futile streak where they can't pull off a win. There have been a lot of close games, like they're 3-8-6 in their last 17 decisions. So that means 6 overtime losses. Like those are coin flips, right? So you sort of if you even those out, the Kings would be 2 games under 500 over the stretch, which hey wouldn't look quite as bad, but that's not how it goes. It looks really bad. And there's a couple things. So one thing when a coaching change happens is you look at PDO, and the Kings are getting PDO'd right now. They are shooting poorly at 5-on-5. So that's one reason why they're doing as badly as they are. Like they probably should have had more goals during this current losing streak, and those goals make all the difference when they've been tied enough, often enough to go into overtime or a shootout. But the other piece is that the Kings have also actually legitimately looked worse. They had about a 60% share of expected goals while they were successful, and that has dropped to about a 50% share of expected goals over the last 4 to 6 weeks, which is like hard to explain. And then you had Drew Doughty's quotes coming out of the locker room, like some people don't care. It just something. See, I don't know. Like I still haven't seen a story that explains exactly like how things crumbled. It seems like it would be a really compelling thing to follow and explain and understand because the numbers certainly tell the story, but there must be some personalities or like actual human context behind them rather than just randomness. And I would love to know a little bit more about those. So unfortunately, we're not going to, but I expect LA, even if they kept McClellan as a coach, to have more success than they were, but to also not be as dominant as they were to start the year. So somewhere between, where they are now is awful, and I think they'll be better than awful. But I think knock them down a peg, from being like an apparently top 5 team in the league to considering them like maybe a 10-15 team until they can start figuring out and fixing some of the issues that led them to lose so much of that expected goal share.
Yeah, there's the goals, and also on the other side, there's the goals against, right? The goaltending all of a sudden started to fall apart, and maybe things can get righted a little bit if they get a little bit better luck, or just better play. So maybe that could be a thing. Also, I think on the permission to drop episode, that the short shifts episode that Derek and Jeremy did, they mentioned that Cam Talbot was a drop, and I don't disagree. But maybe if he gets the next start, when he gets another start, maybe you stream him in for the start. If he does well, it's a new leash with a new coach. Maybe he can get going again. No guarantees, though. It's goalies, right? Who knows? But okay, Brian, with that, let's get into our talking about the hot and cold players around the league. The plan is to go through every team. We might not talk about someone on every team, but at least mention who Frozen Tools has listed. Then we can kind of decide as we go who we think is interesting to talk about. We had some feedback from our last show we did together that maybe people were a little stressed out by our timer. So we'll just keep it to ourselves. We'll try to make good time, but we're just gonna chill, relax, all have a good time. This is all for fun. No one has to be stressed out. Also, the plan, I guess, we're gonna just pick a random team to start, Brian, and then we'll go from there. I'm at randomlist.com/random NHL team. So I'm going to refresh the page right now, and that's going to tell us. It can actually give us the whole order if we want, or do you want to just start on one team and then just go alphabetically after that?
Is it easy enough for you if it just let's go
I could
alphabetically
generate
from
the whole list. I could generate the whole list.
let's
I
go
don't care.
alphabetically from a
Okay.
random starting. There's still like there's the right amount of chaos in that.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
So ready? Here we go. Buffalo Sabres near the top of the alphabet. Poor Anaheim,
Oh,
Arizona, and
that's
Boston.
anticlimactic.
Okay, but we're going to Buffalo. So the two hottest players on Buffalo right now, according to Frozen Tools, are Paterka and Dylan Cousins. So these are just like it's been all over the place with these Sabres, right? Different players are hot, different players are cold. There's been stretches where we've talked about should you drop Cousins and Paterka. I believe we gave permission to drop Cousins and Paterka, which probably now makes people annoyed at us because they went hot like as soon as we said that. So I don't know if there's any lessons to be learned. But yeah, Cousins 7 points in his last 4 games, had a really great stretch before the break. Paterka right there, 7 points in his last 5 games. Obviously makes sense. They were on a line together, right? Cousins, Paterka, and Jack Quinn. Jack Quinn is now injured, so they'll have to find a replacement there. Cousins has also been back on the top power play in the last game, at least, with Thompson, Tuck, and Skinner. So that's good. So I think Cousins definitely becomes interesting. I think they're both interesting, right? So I don't know. I mean, I don't know how much there's to dive into. I guess also on the cold streak side, I'm seeing Jeff Skinner is on the flip side. Only no points in 3 games, so probably not something to read too much into. He also had 4 shots in a couple of those games. So yeah, it seems like maybe we should just stop trying to guess what's going to happen. Next time Cousins and Paterka and the like go cold, maybe we should just assume, yeah, you could drop them, but they're probably going to get going again. It's like these are good young players. I don't know. Brian's scoffing. I just think they're
Yeah,
like great young players, and they're going to go hot and cold.
I agree with you in a sense, but I also like want to point out that Cousins has been cold. Like it's not like we've been making mistakes all year on him. Like he has not had a good season, even with these 7 points in 4 games. Cousins has now worked his way up to a 52 point pace for the season, which isn't great, right? So I don't think we've been wrong in the past. And really, the first thing that I look to when Cousins has been doing well is has his deployment changed? And you mentioned it has on the last game. He spent some time, not the most time. There was some movement, and maybe it had to do with Jack Quinn getting injured. But Cousins found himself playing with Tage Thompson on the top power play, so that was good news for Cousins. And then a couple games ago, Cousins also had a majority share of power play time too. So I kind of see this like creeping up onto the top unit as being something to keep watching. And if that is what happens in Buffalo, then that's good. Like then you want to go out and get Dylan Cousins if he's going to spend significant time there. Cousins up there means that Casey Middlestat is not. And if you hadn't like been watching carefully, I mean, you wouldn't have really known even. Like Middlestat has still had a good power play deployment the last couple games. There was the one game that Cousins was up there and Middlestat wasn't. But that's something I'd be watching. Is both a Middlestat. If Middlestat and Cousins are on my radar at all, I'd be watching to see who lines up on the top unit in the first game back from the All Star break. As for Paterka, Elon, like I think he's just a guy who is good, right? Like, and he can get hot and he can be cold. His deployment isn't great, but he's somebody who's sort of on like the bottom end of the roster. And if he's cold, you can let him go, knowing that you will miss a hot streak at some point. Or if you're looking to stream, then you can add him and hope you grab him at the right time. But he's, yeah, I mean, 4 goals over those last 2 games, coming on 9 shots. Neither of them came on the power play. So, as exciting as this run is, it's not exactly a sign of things to come either.
Sure, but I do like 9 shots over 2 games, so
Me
that's always
too.
something nice to
Yeah.
see.
Yeah.
And also, Jeremy and I talked about Buffalo actually has a really good first couple of weeks of the playoffs in Cupful. So another reason to jump on these Sabres and even hold through a cold streak potentially if you're in a situation where you're confident you're going to make the playoffs, of course. Okay, next up, Calgary Flames. We've got here Anderson and Uyghur both hot. I mean, to be expected. Mackenzie Weegar having an incredible season. On the cold streak side, one name that jumps out to me, Mikhail Backlund, is pointless in his last 4 games. I think this is a mirage. I think now's a great time to grab him. He had 6 shots. He's had 6-3-3 shots in his last 3 games. He's playing with Blake Coleman, who, yeah, is obviously slowing down a little as to be expected. But I like Backlund. Like, obviously, it depends how deep your league is, but I've always been a fan of him as a streamer. And he had a good stretch this year where he was getting points almost every game. Now he's cold. I don't think that's going to continue. He played 23 minutes and 11 seconds in that last game against Chicago, where Calgary won 1-0. It's wild that Chicago is keeping teams, by the way, to so few goals with like no one on their roster. But anyways, yeah, I like Backlund. So I think that's a cold streak that's going to reverse to some extent.
Yeah, to some extent. I liked what you said when you'd say like Kuzmenko would be after Backlund in your ranking, and I think that's about where Backlund or Kuzmenko fits in, right? In how you value different Calgary forwards. Backlund's been a little more reliable in terms of being like on and off at least, where Kuzmenko could just be off. And we talked about Kuzmenko's low shots. Backlund has not had that problem. He's actually he's taken almost 3 shots per game and more than that if you're just looking at only the last 20 games. So I also think Backlund, he might not like go wild, but 0 points in 4 games. I'd expect him to be doing a little bit better than that. Right now, he's on just a 42-point pace. And that's I mean, he's got really low, like even from the second power play unit, I'd expect him to have a couple more points there by now. He's also been a victim of Calgary's lines, just yeah, not looking great too often. Um, yeah, so he's cold, Elon, like, but also I don't know. I like the thought because he can really explode, but I also don't love the thought because Backlund still could end up just being a half point per game for on a pretty regular basis.
All right, put me down, Trev, for the next 30 days, starting now, like 4 fantasy points per game in Cupful as at least. I think that's a
Okay.
reason, which would be rosterable to me. I
Right.
think
So
that'd be
with
pretty good.
shots, like he's already up to like 1.5, right?
I guess.
Like if he takes about 3 shots per game, so he just I don't know. I think that's reasonable. Like I think that's where Backlund usually finds himself.
Yeah, so that's what I'm saying. Yeah,
Yeah.
I
Okay.
think he'll do it.
It's not like I'm
All
saying
right.
he won't, just for the
Okay,
record.
we're on the
Yeah.
same page.
Okay.
All
Love
right,
that.
so okay, I love it too. So next up, Carolina Hurricanes. So we've got here Jarvis, Aho, and Nachas, all hot. I guess Jarvis is like interesting because we've talked about him on the show before. Maybe that also makes him like not worth talking about because we talked about on the show before. But like he's been hot and cold throughout the season. But right now, yeah, he's getting a ton of assists. Right, 5 points in his last 4 games, all assists. Interestingly, it's not like Jarvis hasn't been on the top line. It's been a while since he's been there. He's been on a line with and it's going well. Like Martinook, Stahl, and Jarvis, like the triple J line. I think I saw someone calling it the hard J line, something like that. And you wouldn't think it's a good spot, but he's still on the top power play. And yeah, producing. I guess 2 of those 5 points in the last 4 games have come from power play one, and then leaves three with Martinook and Stahl. So I mean, Jarvis only 22 years old still. Feels like he's been around a little bit. This is his third full season now, and yeah, I don't know. I don't expect this hot streak to keep up though if he sticks on that line. But I do like the top power play. And also, Caroline's going to switch things up. Sveshnikov's injured again. We'll see. I guess there was a practice today, actually. I saw that there was a tweet. Let me just check game day tweets really quickly. Svechnikov, Teravainen, Aho. Oh, I thought, because Svechnikov was in a yellow jersey. Who knows? They change their lines all the time, anyways. But yeah, Jarvis was with Stahl and Martinook, as usual.
Yeah. Yeah, I think I don't know how much more there is to say on that. Carolina changes their lines a lot. Don't want to read too much into it. Jarvis was on a really great run. I don't know, like I think we mentioned him on the show, and I brought it up at the time that like I was ready to change my mind on Jarvis as somebody who might be taking that step forward that we hoped he would because he had taken 4 or more shots in a series of 6 out of 7 games, or was it 7 out of 8? Somewhere in there. Like it was solid. And he entered the All-Star break with 6 shots. And the thing is, even with all these shots that Jarvis has been taking lately, not a whole lot of them are going in. So I like the fact that Jarvis is shooting. I hope he doesn't get terribly discouraged before he stops shooting. But he's been on a really lovely little run. And regardless of where he is in the lineup right now, I am kind of into him. Like he doesn't seem like free agent material if no one's noticed. 18 points in his last 19 games, shooting about 11% over that span.
Yeah. By the way, and we should mention Nichas, right? He was gone for a while. He was out with an injury. He's been back for 5 games now. 4 goals in those 5 games. And speaking of shots, man, this is the game log for shots: 4, 2, 9, 5, and 6. And Nichas is like getting all these points. He's on the second power play right now, which you'd think is like a downgrade, but I guess he's figuring it out anyway. And actually, 2 of those goals have been power play goals from power play two. Would it be too annoying for me to throw at you a Nichas versus Jarvis moving forward?
No, not too annoying. Like the second unit in Carolina isn't like buried. Like sometimes they see like a 40 to 45% share of the time. So it's not the worst place to be. But having 2 goals, in 3 games from the second unit isn't production that we can really count on. But I do like those shots. They came out of nowhere, right? And they came after Nichas was injured. And we've never really seen him have a shooting run like that before. So I'd like to see if he can keep doing that. If he can, like if he keeps coming in, like with, well, did you say like he's up to 26 shots in his last 5 games, so more than 5 shots a game, which is even better than Mikhail Backlund and Seth Jarvis. So I'd like Nichas if he keeps shooting more than someone like Backlund, if that's a choice you're making.
Yeah, I agree. And also over Jarvis, probably for me. Natchez is a really good player. And before you know it, the power plays could change. Over on Chicago, no hot players are listed. It just says none. That was just kind of unfair to Petr Mrazek, right? He's actually had 3 really good
I was
starts in a
just
row.
gonna
I'll bet.
say he's
I'll
he's the
bet.
hot when you said like how's Chicago keeping other teams to so few goals? It's Petr Mrazek. He's on a
Yeah.
run, 968, 930. Like I actually I could if I just said his best save percentage games lately, like he's a 940 goalie over his last 7 games. Do you want to know how many wins he has as a 940 goalie?
I have it in front of me. I'm seeing two.
Two wins in 7 games for Petr Mrazek, who is finding his stride. Like I was gonna say, like just in time for Chicago to get some value for him at the deadline if they want to.
Extended him.
Yeah. So there's that. And maybe that, but maybe what was the extension friendly at
They're
4.25? So yeah, I don't think there's too many teams who are gonna feel great about adding Mrazek, especially like even if he was expiring, I wouldn't say that like this run has added a whole lot to his value because of how inconsistent he's always been. But I have him in the cupful, and I'm happy to have him just in case this sort of play continues. He is no longer sharing the net with Soderblom. I hope that continues to be the case and that he is an out and out starter. And Petr Mrazek, yes, getting the the short shrift from Frozen Pools on as being a hot Chicago player.
Yeah, maybe the algorithm for goalies includes wins, and he's not providing you those. It depends, obviously, what your league categories are. In a wins-only league, he's as cold as you can get as a goalie. All right, Brian, let's take a break, and when we come back, we'll just continue on this ride through the league. We'll go to Colorado next. See you in a sec. All right, we are back, Brian, looking at the hottest and coldest players in the league heading out of the All-Star break, according to Frozen Pool and according to reality, because obviously they're just using an algorithm to figure this out. Great work. That site's amazing, by the way. I use this all the time to prep the shows. This is not a paid advertisement.
Shout out
We
to
are presented by,
Eric. Yeah,
yeah, shout out
does
to
a lot of
Eric.
good
Yeah,
work on the show on the site.
yeah. But yeah, let's go to Colorado. Big surprise. McKinnon and Rantanen are hot. And also rain is wet. But apparently people debate that. Like some people were like, is water wet? Or is
What?
like wet? Because it's like what I don't know. I heard that there's like some you could have some like philosophical debate. I guess you define what wet. Anyways, maybe it's like what water touches becomes wet, or is the water wet? You know what I mean? Like you could
I
have a.
don't I don't
We don't need to get
really.
into it. Google
Okay.
it, and I'll bet you'll see. It's like not
Sounds
a.
like you listened to a podcast about that this weekend.
I didn't listen to a podcast about that, but I listened to a podcast where the people on the podcast were like, "We argue about lots of stuff," and one of their examples was like, "Is water wet?" It was like a little anecdote about the two of their
I,
relationship.
I'm gonna throw a more interesting philosophical question at you.
Hit me.
How many holes in a straw?
One. That's easy.
Okay. How many
Okay.
holes in how many holes in a pair of jeans?
I guess one, right? Like,
I don't know.
I think one. I don't know. That's a harder one. I have to think about it. But I think with the straw, you can imagine it being like compressed. If it was like, if you pushed it in so much that it was like flat, then it would clearly be one hole. The only reason we're thinking of it, and what if you made it a little bit like a donut? We would still think of it as one hole. It's just because you like stretch it out so long, and then you're like, oh, I guess it's two holes. So to me, the straw's easy. I guess I'd have to do the same experiment in my mind with jeans. But let's get back to the Colorado Avalanche. McKinnon and Ranson are hot. Ross Colton is also hot. He's obviously taken over on the top power play with Nichushkin out of the picture, and it's gone very, very well for him, though he's also been good at even strength, right? And we're looking at 6 points in his last 3 games, all assists for Ross Colton. On one hand, I don't expect that to keep up. On the other hand, Colorado has a great schedule next week, playing 4 times, so I would definitely grab him and not drop him at that point. At this point, the interesting thing is on the cold side, Arturi Lehkonen is there. He came back from his injury. He's played a couple games. Nada, nothing, no points, couple shots in each of the games, no power play, like barely second power play, not getting the best deployment. There was news out of Colorado today. Oh, we should mention they signed Zach Parise, and the word is that Parise is going to be playing on a line with Johansson and Lehkonen, which I guess is going to leave Ross Colton. I don't even know where that leaves Ross Colton because I don't know if Drouin is playing with McKinnon and Ranson. So we'll see when. Probably it's going to leave Ross Colton with like Wood and O'Connor. And O'Connor's been really good also. All that to say, Brian, let's talk about Lehkonen, right? Because he's someone everyone held in their IR, like excited to bring him in. Next week, Colorado has a good schedule. Is the idea we're going to hold him through next week and then reassess? Or is he like for you, like you give him a really long leash because of what he did last year in Colorado?
I'm trying to think of the right comparison. Like, is it Evander Kane? But it's not because the peripherals aren't always there anyway. But, this is a talented player who is also extremely line dependent, right? Like, he'll do well in the top six and top power play, or he'll do nothing if he's not featured in those situations. And right now, we don't know if he's going to be featured in either of those situations. So I really do think it's going to come down entirely to deployment. This season, like Lekkonen's barely played, right? So we're not going to judge him. If I remember right, he started out really hot. Yeah, he had a 4 point game in the fifth game of the season, and then he didn't do anything for the next 7 games. Like he had a goal and an assist before getting injured in some random shots. So like early returns for Lekkonen this year weren't awesome, but deployment was. And so that's enough reason to sort of just wait and see. I'm looking at his time on ice for Lekkonen's first 2 games back, 16 minutes in both, which are lower than any of his ice times in other. But of course, he's playing on the top line in other games. So let's see where deployment goes. I have a feeling that Jonathan Drouin is going to hang out on the top line. And so, yeah, you'll have Johansson and Lehkonen, and I guess Parisi will take, it was Andrew Cogliano, great trivia question, before the All-Star break, playing with Johansson Lehkonen. I don't know. I don't know what to make of Lehkonen, Johansson, Parisi line.
To me, I
Like
feel
it,
like it's just power play at the end of the day. Like if he's not on the top
yeah,
power play, it's not going to happen.
I think so. I think so. And so like Colorado can go like Colton is like, maybe that sort of sandpaper guy with some offensive talent who you can like maybe you're like Brandon Hagel type, right? Who can step up on the top or be on the top power play, get a little bit of production, and do nothing anywhere else in the lineup. But also maybe they just go with Lehkonen. So let's see. I tend to think that guys earn their deployment or like get their deployment back once they're in full swing after returning from injury. So that's what I'm expecting for Lehkonen eventually, especially when it's just Ross Colton to surpass. But that's only on the power play because I'm my spidey sense tells me that Jonathan Drouin is going to stick on the top line for as long as things are working out, and they will if you're playing with McKinnon and Rantanen.
Yeah. Okay, next up on Columbus,
Do you
we've
want
got
to, do you
oh,
want to just
sorry.
before we move on? I think I know this isn't a big deal to you. I threw it out in the host chat, but Justice Noonan was called up, and
Right, and Prosvetov was waived.
Prosvetov is waived, and so the way the schedule looks for Colorado this upcoming week, they've got a back to back Monday Tuesday, and then games Thursday Saturday. And I think that back to back Monday Tuesday could determine who gets the start Thursday, and that like I feel like it's a start by start basis in Colorado.
What makes you think that? Like Georgiev has been playing all the games and he's been doing great. Like why would you think that?
Um,
Like Prosvetov's barely played when he's been the backup. I don't know. Wow, now that Annunin is there, I think if
because
anything,
Prosvetov blew it every like basically every time. Like he had like one good start. And if you look at Georgiev's play, he's done terribly. Like it's pretty rare that he's strung together two good games, which is what he's done in his last two games. Georgiev heading into the break, stopped 49 of 52 shots for two wins, a 942 save percentage against Washington and LA. So I'm gonna kind of emphasize team quality there just a little bit. But I don't know, Elon. I feel like the Avs are not married to Georgiev, and that Enunin coming up is sort of like, let's give him a shot and see if he can, like, if we need to. So all I'm saying is if Georgiev struggles and Enunin does well, then I could see Enunin, like the balance shifting or becoming 50-50. At the same time, Enunin has been around a couple times before and not done a whole lot. But so far,
yeah,
his numbers, he was a third round pick, 64th overall back in 2018. So far in the AHL this season for the Colorado Eagles, he's a 908 save percentage, had a 916 save percentage the year before. But in five NHL appearances is an 871. So all I'm saying is let's see.
yeah, I'll respectfully disagree. Like, I guess what you say, you could say about any goalie in the NHL, like in terms of, yeah, if he struggles, then maybe the backup gets a chance. But I think Colorado is one of those teams that I'm more certain than most that Georgiev is getting like all the games that aren't back to backs. And the
Okay.
only reason they did the swap is because I saw a tweet today that they wanted to send Prosvetov back to the minors so we can play some games because they always want to play Georgiev. And so poor Prosvetov's never gotten a chance to play. So now he could play some games and Annunin could take his shot to sit on
Hmm.
the bench and watch
Okay.
Georgiev play some games.
Seems like a
But
generous reading of the situation.
we'll see. Trev can check
Oh,
back
so I have
on
a
us.
question for you. You have you said if Cam Talbot's out there, grab him. He might get a start. He might do well, and then he'll keep starting with the new coaching
Hmm.
change. Uh, well, I guess I know the answer to this. Like versus a Noonan, who's
Like I'll
also
just
going to be
say,
guaranteed to
uh,
start.
I'll say to you this: I have no
Yeah.
interest in Justice Anunin
Uh,
beyond just a spot start on a back to back. I really just
okay.
don't expect him to steal starts from Georgiev. But I could be wrong. Goalies, you never
Fair.
know.
Georgiev has just been so bad.
I like to be fair to Georgiev, like he's playing like every game, right? So it's harder. Like he has a harder job than most goalies to have put up a good save percentage because he plays so much. I think like to be fair, he's like not been that bad, right? Like he's like still winning games at the end of the
898,
day.
40, 898, 45% quality starts.
Yeah, but
That's
hey,
bad.
they've won 6 of their last 8 games with him in the net.
He's won his record is 27, 11, and 2.
Yeah.
But Colorado's basically the only place where you can play that badly and be 27, 11, and 2.
Yeah, so I guess it's tricky. Like I be wonder what you do as a coach. If you have one goal that you know is better, but if you play like if my theory is correct that Georgiev is like maybe just doing worse because he's playing so much, like there's a reason why goalies generally get rested, right? It's because that'll make them better. Otherwise, why do it? So like he's not getting rested at all. maybe that's making him worse, but maybe they still think that's better than, going with a goalie that they think is worse. Like, and Union is like, I know it's supposed to be a good prospect. I actually just listened to a Fantasy Hockey Life episode where they talked to Kat Silverman, and she was like saying that Anunin, like, he needs to kind of step up soon. Otherwise, we need to really reassess if he's like Colorado's future goalie, because he's been in the AHL for a while and hasn't like taken that next step. So maybe he'll get a chance. But I mean, I need to see it. It's like, talk to me again when Anunin has like a couple good games, and then you could ask me if I'm interested in him. So,
And then,
but
yeah, okay, I will.
okay, great. You're a big fan. Hey, I have him in my dynasty. There's nothing that I'd love more than for Anunin to step up and be amazing, but I'm not, banking on
There.
it, I guess.
Neither, nor am I. Nor am I. All
Okay.
right,
So anyway,
next, Columbus.
cool. Yeah. So Chinnikov, Severson, and Gaudreau hot. Severson, come on, give me a break. He had like a couple good games. This is, yeah, four in his last four. Yeah. So he had three good games in a row. Then he went and had a no points, no shots game against St. Louis. I'm definitely not buying in on Severson. Chinnikov and Gaudreau, yeah, they've been good. I guess the name that jumps out to me, similar to Lehkonen in Colorado, we've got a Boone Jenner here who's come back from his injury to the excitement of his fantasy managers, and he's also done nothing. He's pointless in his last 9 games, but I guess just looking at since injury, pointless in 6 games. Like, not also getting top power play a lot of the time. Maybe that changes now with Fantilli out of the picture. But yeah, it's been a real disappointment for Boone Jenner. Brian, you traded him right before he came back. I remember the time you were griping a little bit, like, what have I done? Because you thought that maybe he was going to be injured for longer. So you were like annoyed that as soon as you traded him, he came back. But now you might be feeling a little better because he's not done anything, and Columbus sucks. Like, maybe we can't
Yeah.
expect too much from him.
I mean, like, yeah, in a bad, I do feel a little better, not gonna lie. Like, this is how we do it, right? Like, we feel awful when things don't like seem to be like I traded Boone Jenner to open up an IR spot, and the guy I traded Boone Jenner for immediately got injured while Boone Jenner returned. So like that was very frustrating for me. But the guy who got injured is now healthy, and Boone Jenner is not doing great, and neither is his line. I don't know. I don't. I think we already said like when he was coming back that he could be good, but Columbus is just such a mess, right? Like there's not a whole lot of good. Like there's nowhere good to land in the lineup. Like Jenner's playing with Gaudreau and Chinnikov, and Chinnikov has had like a few goals on like a fair amount of shots lately, but not a ton. So like I don't know that anyone Jenner should be doing better, but also Columbus I don't expect to do a whole lot better. By the way, one guy who I'm not sure we ever like closed the book on, but I'd like to is Kirill Marchenko, who's still like he's actually in a very funny pattern where he's like had 2, 3, and 4 shots alternating for the last 9 games. But he has 4 points in his last 18 outings. So if you still have him, even though he's on the top power play and still getting like fine minutes, he's snoozing and you can let him go. This isn't to say that he's not going to start scoring at some point, but he's not someone to hold on after that huge, huge run that he had that began in late November and lasted about a month.
Yeah, I'd say maybe consider reassessing when like Line is back, and maybe like, it's just like Columbus just has nobody, and like this team is a mess. And I think Marchenko is going to be really good like sometime. Might not be this season, like you said. It's hard to say, but
Yeah,
it's nice that he's
exactly.
getting the
There's
deployment.
like there's like no backbone in Columbus. Like Boone Jenner is the backbone, but it seems like he's alone. Like there's no one you can really sink your teeth into and be like, oh yeah, like that's a guy that I trust on a line. I don't see
What
anybody.
was what was Jenner's injury? Was it his? It wasn't his back, was it? No,
I don't remember.
it was jaw. Okay, anyway, whatever. I was just thinking like, oh yeah, it was a fractured jaw.
Jaw
Anyway,
sounds right.
just feels like, so for someone who gets injured as often as Jenner, I wouldn't want him to be my backbone.
Man, I
But
searched Jenner injury and I got a lot of Chris Jenner.
of course, yeah,
Yeah.
very
Don't
famous
worry,
family.
everyone. She's okay.
Okay. On Dallas, so Heiskanen and Harley both show up as hot. Heiskanen's been back for 2 games since his long injury. Yeah, stepped right in, doing great. Like, had a goal against Anaheim, then 2 assists versus Washington, right back on the top power play. Thomas Harley, though, bumped from the top power play. Didn't matter. He just did it at even strength. A goal and assist versus Anaheim, 2 goals versus Washington. To me, I feel like in a 1-year league, now's a good time to sell Thomas Harley. I think he's on such a run, 6 points in his last 3 games, but there's no way he's going to keep this up. Like, look at his numbers when Heiskanen wasn't hurt, and it was like meager, like a decent stream once in a while. I don't see a reason why we should expect more from Harley now. So I think the fact that he's had these two good games with Heiskanen back makes for a good pitch and try to get like a really, more sure thing person that does get top power play. So that's the way I see it. Not to say that
Yeah,
Harley's not a great player and won't be awesome in the future.
I hear what you're saying. Counterpoint, back before Heiskanen was injured, just making sure I have the right date here. So Heiskanen was hurt on January 4th. Harley was playing like mid pairing minutes and bottom pairing minutes to start the year. But ever since Heiskanen was hurt, Harley's minutes went way up. And in the two games that Heiskanen's been back, Harley's minutes have stayed up. He's played 22 and a half minutes both times at even strength with Heiskanen. So that's a lot of minutes to be on a team that has had a lot of success scoring goals lately. So I'll also point out that Thomas Harley has taken. I mean, again, it all changes with Heiskanen back, but actually, Harley has 9 shots in his last two games, like both with Heiskanen back in the lineup and both with no power play time. He's scored on 3 of them, which isn't going to be something that sustains. But hey, if he can like take 4 and 5 shots on a regular basis from the blue line and play almost 23 minutes a night on an offensive minded team, then I'm still interested. But I also could absolutely see it going your way too, Elon, where he just goes back to his value before then. I don't think he's going to go back as low as he was before then. I think he'll hold some, but likely not all that he had while Heiskanen was out.
Yeah, I think I'm in agreement with you. Put it somewhere in the middle. Like, I mean, I'm saying shoot high, right? Go for like a Josh Morrissey, who's pretty cold. Like if you could get a
Good
more sure
luck.
thing like that. I mean, Morrissey's only pacing for 59 points on the season, but that's due to a hot start. Anyways, whatever. He has on whatever. Just saying, like that's the kind of guy I'd be going for. Find someone that's like more of a sure thing. That's on a cold streak. Find someone nervous, and then send them like a Harley who's like blazing hot. Obviously, it depends on who you're trading with. If you could pull something like that off, you're right, Brian. Probably that's reaching too high. Over in Detroit next, we've got Raymond and Larkin hot. Lucas Raymond's someone that we've had a lot of questions about. He's been on and out. Like his line keeps changing, but yeah, great. Like 7 points in his last 5 games. He's been on the top power play, which is good as far as the line combinations. And Patrick Kane's gonna be back soon, so they'll all get shaken up again. But yeah, it's been a great spot, right? Larkin, DeBrincat, and Raymond, just like the season started. So maybe that changes when Patrick Kane comes back, but probably just ride it out and hope that Raymond can keep this up. Only 21 years old still. So good for him. On the cold side, 3 defensemen: Gostisbehere, Wallman, and Petrie. So yeah, I mean, Gostisbehere, they talked about the permission to drop. We talked about him right before. Like he's gonna have like a 4 point game and then go pointless for 4 games and repeat. Though I guess he hasn't done that for a while. Now he's just kind of going 1 point games and then going pointless. So I still kind of like him. If he's on the top power play, he's like someone I think we all agree is not a sure thing. But if he's been dropped in your league, like Detroit plays, I think no times next week or just on a busy Saturday. Yeah, I think just the busy Saturday. I'm not saying to pounce, but once Detroit gets a normal schedule, if you need a defenseman, it's not the worst, but definitely not the best.
Yeah, I think that's a great description. He's almost like that stream in defenseman, or like he's a streamer, right? If there's anybody who has more potential, then you make the swap. But if you're stuck and you need a defenseman, then Shane Gostisbehere can be like one of your bottom guys if you need that. I actually want to focus on Lucas Raymond for a sec. Like he started really quiet this season and he was kind of like inconsistent and frustrating. But over his last 36 games, this goes back to November 11th, he's on a 70-point pace, 9 goals and 22 assists for 31 points in 36 games, and 9 of those points coming on the power play. The thing is, he barely shoots, like he's taking fewer than 2 shots per night, which is a bit of a bummer. But I don't know. Like I have like this sort of like, and it is like my perception of Lucas Raymond is inconsistent, right? Like because he doesn't shoot very often, and the points seem to come in bunches and waves. And right now we're seeing one of those bunches and waves coming into the All Star break. Before the game against Ottawa, that was the last one. He had 3 consecutive multi-point outings, and it's frustrating to wait for points from him because the shots aren't there. There's no peripherals to speak of. But I think he has a little more value than we might give him credit for. His deployment still like no one's power play deployment in Detroit is terribly great because they're still rolling these like evenly split 50% units. So just keep that in mind. But I think if you have the right expectations for Raymond, especially like if you're in a categories league and assists matter, then I think he's a fairly useful guy. And I think I've mentioned this before, but David Perron also playing on one of those power play units and has been like reasonably productive for almost a month now. Like not great, but not terrible either. So he's someone else to look at, not for the 1 game week. I think Detroit also has like a only a busy night only schedule next week too. So there's not a lot of great schedule luck, but just someone to have on your radar.
Yeah. And Raymond is someone also who's going to be on my radar for sure for drafts next year. I feel like maybe right now he's still going to kind of go hot and cold throughout the year. There's going to be a season at some point where I think he's going to be like great draft value, and it's going to be the year when he finally like really takes that next step. And maybe that could be next year. So maybe someone to consider, but we'll talk about him in the offseason. Let's do one more team, Brian, before taking a break here. Let's go to the Oilers. Again, like Colorado, no big surprises with the hot streaks. McDavid, Draisaitl, and Stuart Skinner. Makes sense. No argument, no notes. On the cold streak side, a really blaring name here that we need to dive into. Evan Bouchard somehow has gone really cold. Only 1 point in his last 5 games. He was above point per game on the season before that. So now all of a sudden a cold stretch. And like I said, like it's not as if his friends on the power play aren't scorching and even strength. Like McDavid and Draisaitl are as hot as ever. But yeah, Bouchard's gone totally cold. Is this just the kind of thing where, it'll happen once in a while, totally nothing to worry about? Or are you seeing any like signs of concern here for like as I ask, I almost want to answer like, but obviously you don't. But like I need to
Yeah.
ask the question.
Yeah, you've asked the question and you've also answered it. Like it is super weird that with Bouchard's deployment, he has only 2 assists in his last 9 games. Like he has 32 on the season in 45 games. So like do the math. And for someone who is that assist heavy through the first, 40, like 38 or 36 games of the season, for him to go as cold as he has been, is odd. But I think this is just a strange piece of variance and that he'll be okay.
Yep, agreed. Like if you could trade Harley for Bouchard, then go for it. But
Oh yeah.
that
Oh, that's
maybe you'll have to give
ridiculous.
give Harley and Lucas Raymond. I don't know. Make a package.
What?
No way.
No one's
There's no way.
trading Evan Bouchard.
I agree. Who are the I want to be in a league with people who panic like a lot. That would be fun. But I guess also maybe it wouldn't be fun because it would be too easy. All right, Brian, this has been fun. You know what's not? You know what else is too easy? You know what else is too easy? Doing podcasts with Brian Com. Time goes by so fast. Next thing you know, it's been an hour. Good time for us to take a break, and we will come back with the Florida Panthers, and we'll go all the way down the alphabet and then back up to the top and through Boston. Let's see if we can do it. Thanks everyone for listening. If you want to listen to part 2 for all of that, it should already be downloaded for you, assuming you're subscribed to Keeping Karlsson. We'd really appreciate that subscription. If you're not, wherever you get your podcast, get that show auto downloaded. And yeah, with that, I will say ta-ta for now. Remember, Brian, remember we were talking about our old chat platforms we used to use on? Did you ever write a good old TTFN to say goodbye to someone?
Nope.
No, that was just me. All right, well, TTFN, everybody. We'll see you in part 2 in just a sec.
L8R.
What's that? I don't know that one.
Later.
LAR? Oh, the
L8R.
L8. Oh, yeah, L8R. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to edit my part out. Bye.
SK8R.
B0Y. Okay. Uh, all
Ready?
right. Oh, yeah,
Okay.
hit me.
Yes, welcome everybody to part 2 of this week's Keeping Karlsson mega show. Elon and I, Brian Com, have been counting down all the hot and cold streaks across the NHL. We have ventured all the way from Buffalo to Edmonton. We've got our work cut out for us in the back half here, but we're up to the task as we're trying to figure out who's hot, who's cold. Should we care? Should we not? Is everything going to be okay? Or how many eyebrows are we raising? We just finished Edmonton with Evan Bouchard. Elon, do you think that's going to be the least consequential cold streak we cover in the rest of the show?
Hmm. Oh, I don't know. Let's keep that as we go, and let's see if there's another one. What was the previous least consequential one that we talked about? We talked about Lehkonen. That was pretty consequential. Boone Jenner.
I
Okay,
think that's
so far,
consequential. I think
yeah.
every other cold, maybe Jeff Skinner. Like
Oh yeah.
we shrugged that one off.
Okay, well, let's go to Florida now. Aaron Ekblad is there. I think we're not shrugging that off. We're like, yeah, he's just like not going to be that good. And I think you said that you don't want to talk about him anymore, so I'm not even going to bring him up. You know what?
Thank you.
Florida's going to be a fast one because they're listing Kachuk, Verhage, and Sam Reinhart as hot streaks. Yeah, doy. There's nothing to say here that hasn't been said. Those 3 are incredible. So let's move on to the LA Kings here. Quinton Byfield. Oh, we already talked about the Kings with the coaching change, right? So obviously, the two players the fantasy people are hoping are not affected by coaching change are Drew Doughty and Byfield. Doughty on a nice streak of 4 points in his last 5 games, which is not incredible, but better than his pace for the season, right? He's not having the most incredible offensive season, but he's got a bit of a hot stick lately. Byfield was super cold. I think Brian, you had him and you were thinking of dropping him. I hope you didn't, because yeah, 5 points in his last 4 games. Do you still have him on your roster?
Just barely. Yeah,
Woo!
by the skin of his teeth. So I'm pleased um to still have Byfield on my roster. He has started, he did go really quiet, and that's why he was on the outs on my roster. And there were some like a couple 0 and 1 shot games sprinkled in there after he had spent a good chunk not having those. But now he's back up to most of his old tricks with 2 or 3 shots in his last 9 outings. And that's not a ton, but it's enough for me. So long as his power play on the top power play, as long as his deployment on the top line, top power play persists, and we'll see what happens with the new coach. But I can't see that changing. In fact, Elon, you know what? One question I have with the coaching change is whether we're going to actually see a top power play deployed in LA. Like they by personnel only, they have a top power play, but Todd McClellan was doing 50-50 with like their unit one and unit two. And maybe this could be one impact to look for in the coaching change if the new coach, Jim Hiller, does rely a little more heavily on that top unit, as I think would be reasonable. So that would obviously help Byfield. That would help Kempe, Kopitar, and Fiala. You're muted.
I guess, yeah. Or he could be like, yeah, I agree. There should be just a single top power play. Let's put our four best forwards on there. So let's get Trevor Moore on there and knock out Byfield. I mean, I don't know. We'll have to see.
I think it would be like Dubois or Dano. I don't think Trevor Moore was the wrong choice.
I don't know. Trevor Moore is having quite the season, but we don't have
Uh-huh.
time, Brian. Let's go to the
Okay.
Minnesota Wild. This is an easy one. Eriksson Ek, Kaprizov, Zuccarello. Yeah, I mean, these are the guys that we've known were going to be good. For what it's worth, like Kaprizov and Zuccarello have been playing on the top line with Marco Rossi, and like he's not that hot, even though he's playing with those guys. So I guess a lot of it is just the power play. All three guys that I just mentioned are on that top power play and getting a lot of points. But yeah, I think Marco Rossi is someone that at some point, if he's like sticking with Zuccarello and Kaprizov, I think he should get a few more points. On the cold side, Middleton, Hartman, and Marcus Johansson. I mean, there was a time when Ryan Hartman was worthy of being talked about, but lately he's been playing on the third line with Gaudreau and Duhaime. So yeah, I think that everything looks as it should over in Minnesota, according to the lists here. So let's go to the Montreal Canadiens, who we already talked about with their big trade, moving out Monahan, and then we said Newhook is going to come back. I guess like so the hot streaks here are Suzuki, Caulfield, and Mike Matheson, the only three people that are probably rostered in the majority of leagues. And then the cold streaks, David Savard, Yolonen, and Caden Gooley. David Savard had a moment, right? He came back from his injury and he was getting a decent number of points to go along with a really amazing peripherals. I guess as expected, the peripherals have remained. He's getting a lot of blocks, but the points have disappeared. And I guess that's just like what you had to expect. So if you're holding Savard, you're doing it for the peripherals. Maybe you're hoping for more than like he's pointless now in 6. Maybe you could expect like 1 or 2 points in every 6 games, which brings that value up a little bit. But again, this would be a very deep cut for me to be talking too much about David Savard.
Yeah, if you're rostering David Savard, you're rostering him for the peripherals and you're not like counting the points you're going to get from him. You're hoping that Savard, can chip in something somewhat more regularly than once every 6 games, but not like actually expecting that to happen. You know who we haven't talked a lot about this year, Elon, who deserves more of our attention is
Who?
is Mike Matheson. He's
He's
been
very good.
fantastic. 2.5 shots per game, 57 point pace, 19 power play points. Mike Matheson is pacing for like 35 power play points this season. So he's doing fantastic at 5 on 5. I think his numbers are a little like so sorry. The question I'm asking myself is Mike Matheson is hot. Is he going to keep it up? And I think at 5 on 5, like he's shooting 12%, which is high. So he's only got 7 goals this season. And 5 of them have come on the power play. So we're not going to read too much into the fact that Mike Matheson has scored 2 goals at even strength, and he probably should only have one. That's not really going to move the needle. Oh, oh, shoot. Sorry. I asked, whoa. So it's not really going to move the needle. Sorry. Oh, nope. That wasn't him. Sorry, I'm going to start over for Mike
From one
Matheson.
guy we don't have to talk about Mike Matheson
I'd
also.
like to.
Okay. We can
Okay.
do a quick one. Yeah.
So blah blah blah. David Savard. You know, one guy who I think we should probably give a little more credit to this season is Mike Matheson, with a
Oh yeah.
57-point pace. He's continued exactly what he did last season. 2.5 shots per game, 19 power play points. So he's basically pacing for 35 power play points on the season. And at 5 on 5, like everything is looking fine. Like, so obviously the question is, can Mike Matheson keep this up? Or is it like sell high time? At 5 on 5, his on ice shooting percentage is actually low, so maybe he should be doing even a little better. At 5 on 5, the one thing Mike Matheson really has going for him this year is 5 power play goals, which is a really great way to collect power play points. I don't know that they will all continue, but I think like enough of a chunk to say that I don't expect him to like completely fall off on the power play. And everything else looks like pretty reasonable and sustainable. So Mike Matheson, I think he's like locked in now as this like 55, 60 point big power play producer in Montreal. And what a nice landing spot for him after not really finding a home or an offensive home, at least for most of his career up until this point.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. I think honestly, there's like no much reason to talk about him moving forward until something changes because I agree with you. He's like locked in. I think he's a very reliable fantasy piece at this point. Over on Nashville, the hot streak is Roman Josi. He's incredible. There was talk in our Discord about like a trade where someone wanted, someone was like saying, "Oh, I'm not going to be contending still for like a year or two, so I was going to trade like Roman Josi for like an up and coming person." I just feel like Roman Yossi like incredible, and yeah, he's like whatever, 34 years old now. It's just like he's not showing any sign. 33. He's not showing any signs of slowing down. He's just as great as ever. 14 points his last 11 games. I guess he'll have to slow down at some point, but I'll bet you in 2 years, Roman Yossi will still be like a 70-point defenseman. Like Trev, you could put me down for that and tag me in a couple of years. On the cold streak side, one name that jumps out is Ryan O'Reilly, who's been locked in on the top line and top power play all season long. But yeah, kind of sputtering a little bit going into the break, pointless in his last three. If you actually look at his last 10 games, there's 3 multi-point games in there. It's like overall the numbers look kind of fine, like 7 points in his last 10 games, but it's 3 multi-point games, leaving 7 pointless games. So are you seeing any, and I guess along with him, I should point out Gustav Nyquist is cold, slowed down a little bit, not to the extent of O'Reilly. He got a point in that last game versus LA before the break. But are you nervous at all about O'Reilly and Nyquist like not being able to keep up what they did in the first half of the season? Or is this just like a random cold streak? And as long as they're sticking with Forsberg at even strength on the power play, it'll keep rolling.
I think I'm going with the latter, which surprises me. Like when I started looking into this, I'm like, oh yeah, Ryan O'Reilly is not going to be able to keep up what he's been doing. I think one of the things that O'Reilly has had going for him so far is 11 power play goals through 51 games. That's huge. He got like he's been scoring on the power play basically all season long. That started to cool, just 2 power play goals in his last 13 games. And I'm wondering if that is something that is going to stick. So right now, O'Reilly's found himself at a 68-point pace. And if those power play goals fall off a little bit, then maybe he's closer to a 60-point pace the rest of the season. He is scoring on 26% of the shots he takes on the power play, but he hasn't been that far off that number at various points in his career. And his power play expected goals rates are actually like by far the highest in his career. So O'Reilly's getting good looks on the power play, and that's why he's scoring as much as he is. Um, so like I'm kind of between like sustainable at 68-point pace and like don't worry too much about it. I think I'll hedge just a little and say like I'll take the under. I expect O'Reilly to produce a little less the rest of the season, but not a lot. So if you find anybody giving up on him at this point, that would be a pretty exciting guy to be able to add.
Yeah, agreed. Over on New Jersey, we've got Heishier, Bratt, and Tyler Toffoli. Very interesting to see Toffoli now on the hot side because we were talking about him on the very cold side recently. And actually, yeah, we have his like doppelganger, but on the flip side, Bizarro Tyler Toffoli, Dawson Mercer in the cold players. So I feel like a month ago, it was like Mercer who was red hot and Toffoli was doing nothing. Now Mercer is cold. And yeah, and Toffoli's got himself 5 points in the last 4 games, all goals. And Toffoli also like the shots out of nowhere. Look at this. 5 shots in his last game. He had a 7 shot game, another 5 shot game a couple games back. Before that, he had a long stretch of like a lot of zeros, a couple ones. So I don't know. I guess my one thing I'll just say is, and this is just a hunch, not based on anything, is I have a really strong feeling that Dawson Mercer is going to have another point this season where he goes really hot. He's done this before to us. I feel like he's just streaky, and I think at some point he'll just become a really consistent player in the league. And I think Shams has put it best of say, I think it was Shams who said on short shifts like Mercer might, or maybe I don't know who it was. Okay, but like something about how like Mercer's like almost like too versatile for his own good. Like he's such a good player that he can play anywhere in the lineup. So it kind of hurts his fantasy value because sometimes they have to move him around to even out another line. But yeah, right now I guess Mercer is looking kind of coldish and droppable. At the same time, the wrench is that Jack Hughes might be back soon. The latest news report was kind of vague about could be like this week, could be next week. Then the lines will change. I like Toffoli if he's playing with Hughes, and Toffoli looked nice to see him able to produce even without Jack Hughes.
Yeah, and it's a big if. Like one thing I have to be honest, like anytime we talk about anyone on New Jersey this year, I feel frustrated. Like I haven't Jack Hughes is great. Jesper Brett is great. And I feel like that's as much as we can really say. Oh, Nico Heishier is great. That's about as much as we can really definitively say that you can rely on in New Jersey. Everything else just seems to be like in transition, both in deployment and performance. Like to fully, Elon, you mentioned his shots. Yeah, they've come on strong. He's got 18 shots in his last 4 games. That was after a bunch of 1 and 2 shot performances. He's got 5 goals on those 18 shots, so he's on a heater now. Dawson Mercer too. His shots, well, they haven't like oscillated quite as much, but he did have a shooting percentage heater with 5 goals on 13 shots when we sort of considered him hot. It's been a while though. Like that was a month ago at this point. So like Mercer's snoozing, but I agree with you that he will get hot again at some point. And Toffoli is going to cool down again. But I would love to see the shots continue. The thing is, I have no idea. I have no idea what I can expect. I feel like, with Timo Meyer and Toffoli and Mercer, like I'm trying to think of what other Devils have been like hard to project. Like even, I'll even go with like Luke Hughes and Dougie Hamilton when he was in the lineup. It doesn't seem like anybody is easy to project in this lineup right now, and I find that very personally frustrating. Just
I'm
putting that out there.
I'm sorry, Brian. Yeah, I wish if fantasy hockey could be easier and more predictable. On one hand, that would make it fun, but I guess that would also take away a little bit of the excitement. But yeah,
I'm just saying,
it's
like some
tricky.
some teams and players, like you see the patterns. I'm not seeing
Yeah.
patterns in New Jersey this year.
No, I'm with you. Like the thing is, we play this game where definitely there's like skill involved, right? Like the better players generally win more, but like sometimes you could like put in all the right calculations, whatever, and like sometimes just weird stuff is happening in New Jersey. Like you're saying, it's really hard to pin down what's going to happen. There's nothing really that we can sink our teeth into. Yeah, like Toffoli was cold and not shooting, and now he's like hot and shooting, and like who knows what's going to happen in the future. Let's go to the Islanders. I guess the big surprise here, no surprises with the Hots, Dobson and Barzal. Anders Lee is cold. This guy like was someone that I left for dead. Not even considering him for a long stretch of this season. Then he finally started getting going like around the end of December, and he went on a nice little run. He was playing on the top. It was kind of like okay, he's on a decent. When I say he was on a nice run, it was like 3 or 4 games. But when he's playing with Horvat and Barzal, you're like that should be something. But he's cold again. Pointless in his last 5 games, even more pointless games before that. Just there was a nice 2 goal game against Winnipeg in there. So I think Anders Lee is like we know at this point. He's not on the top power play. So it's a nice even strength line, maybe a decent streamer as a, you know, flip of a coin, or not even a flip of a coin, roll of a dice more likely. But yeah, I guess not too surprising also that he's back on the cold section.
Agree. Yeah, I think we'll expect him to run hot and cold, and we both learned that maybe we shouldn't have left him fully for dead. The shots before were like healthier than they were now. They're still okay now, but they're not great. So that's another reason to sort of move on from Anders Lee at this point, along with, as you said, off the top power play. Still hits though. If that helps you.
Okay, the Rangers, we've got Fox and Panarin are hot. Braden Schneider is cold. So yeah, nothing too much there to dive into on Ottawa. Brady Kachuk is hot. Brady Kachuk is like very good, right? I feel like Ottawa is kind of a mess, but like he's having a really good run lately. He's got 4 points his last 3 games, up to 41 points in 47 games on the season, which I guess is actually below his pace overall in the season from last year. It looks like he has a bit of a lower shooting percentage. No, wait, or no? What? I'm seeing 4.3. Okay, sorry. Let me actually just can't. Let me just do Ottawa again. Sorry.
I was
over in
actually gonna, before you jumped, I'd be happy to just mention one more Ranger.
Oh, okay. So
Okay.
I'll go from there. Braden Schneider. So yeah, nothing too much to sink our teeth into there. Okay, so jump in. Yeah. But
The
we
one
do
guy
have
that,
to like speed through some teams and not
yeah,
talk about
I'm gonna be fast. I would have been done already.
them.
Sorry, just kidding. Not really. Um, okay. Yeah, but oh, wow.
Emoji.
The one guy every time we talk about New York that I check out is Alexis Lafreniere, right? Just to see how he's doing, and he's been gold lately. I'm surprised he didn't like trigger the algorithm. He's got 4 points in his last 10 games, and his shots have sort of dipped a little, but he has 3 shots in each of his last couple games, and the Rangers have a good schedule coming up. So I wonder if he might be worth a shot just to see if he can pick things back up. He's still on a good line. He's on a 49-point pace this season, which includes this current cold stretch. He still is shooting like more than ever before. So just don't. That's your Lafreniere update, I guess.
All right. So Brian, we're gonna take a break, and when we come back, we'll talk about your Ottawa Senators. So we'll talk about them in just a second. So give me Karlsson. All right, we are back, Brian. So on the Sens, we've got Brady Kachuk and Thomas Shabbat as our hot streaks. Nice for Shabbat, right? It's 4 points in his last 4 games. He's someone who, was a bit cold to start the year. We even had some people wondering if they should drop him. We didn't know for sure about the power play. Seems like he's locked in the top power play. Jacques Martin as the coach. So that's nice. And actually, on the cold side, I'm seeing Jake Sanderson, who, yeah, went pointless in his last 4 games. And if I recall correctly, is he not injured? Let me just quick a little game day news over here. After sustaining a lower body injury in the first period, Jake Sanderson will not return to tonight's game at the Red Wings. That was on January 31st. So I guess we haven't had an update that Shams has retweeted yet. So we'll see. But either way, it seems like Sanderson is not having the season that people like hoped he would. I guess he's pacing for 42 points, which is like a solid piece in fantasy. But obviously, with Shabbat now taking the top power play, it's hard to imagine Sanderson has too much upside.
Agree. That's all there is to it. I'm waiting. Like I thought by now, and I've said this before, that we would know who to look to for production in Ottawa from the blue line. And well, Shabbat is hot. Actually, Shabbat's been like quite good for the last month, and so I don't want to really put him down too much. But I don't know. I just wish we had more clarity at this point, and we still don't. So that frustrates. I'm airing some frustrations clearly when we get to this section of the alphabet.
All right, let's just move past the O's to well, I guess we're not getting the happier times because we're going to Philadelphia, where obviously now for unfortunate and dark reasons we have a glaring hole in net, and Sam Ersson now is I guess the presumed volume starter, but he has like it's not a good time. You would have thought like jump on Sam Ersson now. He's going to be getting all the starts. Like Cal Peterson has been called up to be the backup. I think we know what we have in Cal Peterson at this point. Harrison, though, 3 and 4 goals against in the last 4 games. So Philly is starting to tailspin a little bit. The goaltending has been really rough. And yeah, I don't know. I still think probably Harrison's worth holding because I think he's the volume guy. But I thought maybe Prosvetov, who got waived from Colorado, we talked about earlier, I thought maybe Philly would claim him so they could send Cal Peterson back down. But no, I guess we're going to be rolling Harrison and Peterson, and I'm not too optimistic. But at the same time, like, what do you think about this? Like, would you be jumping on Harrison if he was dropped, or would you be like, I don't really need to have a part in this Philadelphia team?
Nah, it's tough. Like I kind of trust John Tortorella to work it out, which is not something I might have said like at several points over the last many years. So I'm that's where I'm at. Like I
Okay,
jump on him if I'm desperate enough for it, like if I'm looking for a starter, like I need one, then yeah.
okay,
I
let
think
me.
I would do a spec ad on
Okay,
Harrison. Give him a few games, see if they start ironing things out.
okay, I got one for you because I think I agree. Actually, as you started talking, I was like, yeah, maybe I'm being too hard on him. 4 bad games, but he was so great before that. So sure. How about Harrison? And sorry to go back to the dreaded O part of the alphabet, but let's say Corpusalo and Harrison were both out there. Who would you be wanting to add of the two?
I think I think I'd go Erson. And
Okay.
that's like a coaching system trust piece. I don't see any reason to believe in Corpusalo. I don't see a whole lot of reason to believe in the Senators, like figuring out how things are defensively. They've been backsliding that way. So even though Korpisalo is coming off two strong starts heading into the All-Star break against, it's like Korpisalo has been good more often than not over his last seven appearances, 4-1-2, and 912 save percentage. He's had five good to great games and two terrible outings too, which I think is like generally what to expect from Korpisalo, but also still maybe even better what you can generally expect from Korpisalo. So give me Erison. Do you agree? You're muted.
Yeah, I mean, probably. Yeah, I mean, probably a coin flip, but I'll go Harrison with you as well. Okay, let's go to the Pittsburgh Penguins. On the hot streak side, have we mentioned Sidney Crosby like at all this year? Like, there's not much to say, but except for like he's 36 years old and he's just as great as ever. Like he's got 50 points in 46 games on a streak now of nine in his last seven. Even in a year where Pittsburgh is struggling, like Crosby is just humming right along this incredible career. I feel like he gets a little bit forgotten, like all the excitement of McKinnon and McDavid and all like the new batch. What was it in Saved by the Bell? The new
The
someone would
new
know. Someone in the
class.
chat. New class. But yeah. And also even Malkin, by the way. 40 points in 46 games. Not as exciting as Crosby. He's also on a decent streak right now. And then I guess the more fantasy relevant, somewhat, I guess probably these guys are both rostered. But on the defense, Karlsson is hot. He's doing really well lately. 11 points in his last 11 games. Chris Letang is cold. According to Frozen Tools here, yeah, pointless in his last four, but Pittsburgh is rolling some crazy power plays in practice today. They had a top unit of Crosby, Gensel, Rust, Smith, and Letang, and then Malkin and Karlsson on the second power play. Though I wonder when you see units like this, is it just going to be 50-50? So who knows? But I
They
don't know.
they
Would you
actually
be like concerned if you have Karlsson and he's like this hot, but now like not playing on the top power play with Crosby? Are you concerned at all or like whatever?
No, like Carlson, no. I wouldn't be so concerned. Like, yeah, it takes a little bit away from his upside, but also this is the setup that the Penguins had against Montreal in the last game before the break. Like, this isn't just practice. The only difference is Riley Smith instead of Valtteri Puustinen, and I think that's because Riley Smith was not playing in the game before the break. So I don't know how long this will last. Obviously, it's not great for Malkin and Karlsson, who lose some power play earning potential just by virtue of losing minutes. I still think their unit will be dangerous when they're on the ice, but the split was about 60-40 in the game before the All-Star break. And that's like 20 to 30% less power play time than Karlsson and Malkin are used to. This could be great news for Chris Letang on the flip side. So keep an eye on
Yeah.
him if this does persist as a setup.
I just feel like feels so unlikely to
It
persist as a
does.
setup. But I
It
agree
does.
with you that if it does, then yeah, it's something maybe something we could check in on in a week once we see if it lasts more than like a couple games. Okay, San Jose, Tomas Hertl, William Eklund, and Mackenzie Blackwood all hot, which is great. Like Blackwood, we've talked about on a show recently as just being like kind of like Mrazek. I think that we've been comparing them a lot throughout the season, like bad teams, but they're like holding their own, and it's like quite impressive. Meanwhile, Hertl missed a couple of games going into the break, and William Eklund jumped into his spot at center and has been great. He now has 5 assists in his last 3 games. Not that many shots, but I guess he's getting the apples. And I guess now Hurdle's going to come back, and we'll have to see how the lines look. But nice to see Eklund finally, getting hot for maybe one of the first times in his career. I guess he had a run there at the beginning of December. I'm seeing as I scroll through the game log. But yeah, I wouldn't be jumping on. Well, first of all, San Jose doesn't play at all in the next week. I'd imagine Hurdle will be back after that, and then I think Eklund just goes back to being like a stream, but not someone I'm too excited about for now. Maybe one day.
Do you know something like completely wild about this Eklund run? Like you mentioned all the assists. What was it? 5 assists in his last 3 games?
Hit me.
There's only been two goal scorers that those 5 assists have come on.
Oh,
Do you
okay. Let
do
me
you know
guess.
do you want to guess?
Zetterland.
You're never gonna guess.
Okay, so
I'll
just
I'll
tell me.
give you
Oh, I'll
I'm
know
gonna
one
give
of
you
them.
another hint. They're
I know for
both
sure one of them. Don't give me a hint. Don't give me a hint.
okay.
Mark Edward Vlasic,
Yeah, yeah.
because I
Mark
know he's
Edward
been
Vlasic
scoring a lot of goals lately.
has three, and Jan Ruta, also on defense, has the other
Yeah.
two. It's like a super weird way to collect assists. So William Eklund wins for having like the weirdest run of assists that we've seen in like honestly recent memory to have three Vlasic goals and two Ruta goals. And maybe that just speaks to how great Eklund is at setting up chances. or it just
Maybe.
speaks to a little bit of luck. Yeah.
I mean, Mark Edward Vlasic, who was someone that you could have told me he wasn't in the league and like, earlier, and I would have been like, yeah, that tracks. But he in his last three games has three, four, and five shots, like two, four, and three blocks, three goals, like you said. Like all of a sudden,
Those
like it's
those
a
th
little
those
surge.
th those three goals in what is it, 5 games? No, three
Three games.
games.
Yeah.
So he had 2 goals in 26 games before that this year. Prior to that, he had 5 combined goals in 204 games. Like he hadn't scored more than 3 goals in a season since 1920 when he had 5.
Cool run.
Wild. Yeah,
By the
it's
way,
fun. He must feel great. Can you
I'd
imagine?
imagine. Yeah,
Yeah.
I'd be like, retire now. But he's making so much money that he shouldn't. On the flip side, I guess in a similar vein as like a Lehkonen or a Boone Jenner, like Logan Couture, we're all excited. Couture's coming back, should be good. Pointless in five. See, I think Brian, you and I were both like, expect him to probably do what he did last year. Do you still feel
Yeah.
that way? Or now are we just like, actually, he's probably droppable?
Well, the thing is that San Jose doesn't play this week, and I think next week
Yeah.
they only play once. And so I would say everybody except Tomas Hurdle is droppable, and that includes Couture. Like just looking at what Couture has done since coming back, we might have only talked about him since he had like played like 15 and a half minutes returning. He's seen 21 minutes, 20 minutes, 16 minutes, 18 minutes, 22 minutes, kind of all over the place. And that's probably related to special teams time opportunities. I don't know. Like his faceoff percentage is really like bad. I don't know if that's like into like I'm searching here for clues.
Yeah.
He has uh one shot. There's only been a single game where he's taken more than a shot on goal. So yeah, you can drop Logan Couture and we'll see. Like, yeah, I thought maybe he'd be on the low end of like 60 points. And I still think he could get there, but not the way things are going. So, Elon, do you agree with me that Hurdle is the only shark worth holding with one game in the next 2 weeks?
So it's not true though, just to correct you, like he plays no times next week, and then the following week, San Jose plays Wednesday, Thursday, Saturday. So that it's three games
Oh,
in that
sorry
week
about
of the
that. Why
12th
did
to the
I?
18th. Probably
Okay.
you were thinking like one streamable game because the Thursday and Saturday are so
Yeah,
busy. Maybe that was
that's
on your
it.
head.
Yeah.
But if you have Couture, you probably would have him on your bench in those games with the way it's been going. I guess the only thing is like if you want to bank on like maybe he just hasn't been 100%, and now with a longer break, maybe now he's like finally back as being the Logan Couture. But I feel like if you need to win this upcoming week and maybe a couple weeks, I don't think you can wait. Like a week with San Jose not playing at all, like I think like the nice thing with Hurdle is
Yeah,
you could stash him. He's IR eligible right now. You can stash Hurdle. It's great.
right.
Hopefully he just stays that way all the way through this whole week.
Exactly. And like of course, like the calculation you make with Couture, if you're wondering whether to keep or drop him, is will you be able to get him back? Like who else is going to add him in
But if you
this like
can't,
zone of nothing? And if you can't, like I don't think you should kick
boo-hoo.
yourself if he ends up
Yeah.
being great. Yeah.
Yeah, maybe like a Zetterlund is just as good. So if Zetterlund's in free agency, I feel like you can drop Couture. Maybe if Zetterlund is rostered, then you can be like, oh, my league is pretty deep. Maybe I have to think twice. Maybe he's like the waypoint to look at. Okay, let's go to Seattle now. Jared McCann is hot. That's great. He had that long stretch of being a disappointment this year after his, huge 40 goal output last season. But yeah, now we're up to 13 points in the last 10 games for Jared McCann. I got offered McCann for Tage Thompson, like McCann
Are you
plus.
regretting it?
Maybe, maybe I shouldn't even be airing this because I could be like, go try to make the trade. I don't know. I'll think about it. But anyways, McCann's been really good lately.
I
I guess
think
that.
I would rather Tage.
But what about? I think it was actually okay. I'll tell you offline because now I'm
Okay.
realizing now that I shouldn't be like just talking about these like trade offers live in front of everybody. But
Oh,
it was
okay.
it was McCann and someone else really good actually. So anyway,
Um,
let's look at.
write me now. Want to know?
Okay,
I
I'll
guess
write
that's
you.
mean to the listeners.
This is
Sorry.
probably like terrible
This is awful
content.
content. McCain has 6 goals on his last 26 shots. So he's been scoring on basically a quarter of the shots he takes during this run, where he's got 12 points in 9 games. It's nice that the assists are coming, though, like 6 assists over 9 games, and even like regress those goals. And he's got like, 8 points in 9 games, which is pretty solid. So it would be nice to see McCann gets he and Atkinson are tied with each other for the slowest burn, like the longest you had to wait and be patient for them to actually deliver for you. Although McCann has had little bursts along the way, whereas Atkinson had none.
Yeah. Okay, let's go to Seattle. Sorry. All right, let's go to St. Louis next. Jordan Binnington. Have we talked about this season that he's been having? He's up to a
We
908 save percentage now.
Yeah. I actually could we go back to Seattle for just a quick
Oh, of
second?
course, as long as you want.
Yeah, well, I just Philip Grubauer has been back for a little while, right? 4 games, and he's backed
But
up all of them.
yeah, it's funny. They
Yeah,
have him listed as cold, but it's like he hasn't played. I think they're still counting his games from in December before he got injured.
right.
Because
It
yeah,
still
Joey
is.
Daccord has just
Yeah,
held the
and
spot.
Decord looked like he was like, oh, maybe slipping like one good, one bad, one good, one bad. But Decord has now played fantastic in 4 of his last 5 starts. Yeah,
Honestly, that's like
he's one of the ones that got away from me this year. I had
yeah.
him, I let him go. Oops.
It's hard. It's hard to know. He never did it before. But yeah, I think it's a sign of good coaching, right? Like I feel like it's almost like if you have a goalie that like has been so great for you for so long, then they like have like a bad game, 2 bad games in a row, and then you're just like, whatever. Like, let's go back to the group. It's like no, Decord's gotten you back into, respectability here. Like Seattle's now like in playoff contention, I believe. I'd have to bring it up. But like I like that. I like that move, and it's worked out for them. Like you said, Decor just shut out the. Oh wait, no, the Sharks shut out Seattle in the last game before the break. Wow, that was Mackenzie Blackwood. Look at him. But obviously not Decor's fault. That's Jared McCain couldn't get it on the board. But okay, another goaltender I want to bring up on St. Louis, Brian Jordan Binnington, is someone I actually just traded for in one of my dynasty leagues with Victor. I probably this was a mistake, and he'll like the wheels will fall off like we've seen before. But it's been a great run for him in his last 4 games, but also most of the season, right? I guess there were a couple bad stretches for Binnington, but compared to last year, it's nice to see. Like I really thought this year, like Joel Hofer would have a great opportunity to steal starts, but no, it's been Binnington as the pretty much volume starter, and Hofer pulling the what I expect Annunen to be on Colorado here. So yeah, I mean, with goalies who could predict, but it seems like Binnington's had a really nice bounce back.
He has 928 save percentage over his last 10 outings. Only 21 goals against in that time, 6-3-1 record, and only 2 bad starts, which is, like before this, like Binnington seems to be able to go on runs and then like struggle for a while to find his footing. So like you said, this could be short-lived. But on the whole, like if you look at Binnington's whole season and forget sort of the streakiness, with this current run, of course, he's up to 58% quality starts, which is like fine. Like that's not bad. That's okay. It's not great, but it's okay. And a 908 save percentage. So he's doing better than he did last year. And this might be about as good as you can hope for Bennington. So let's see if it holds. And yeah, Hofer hasn't like offered too much of a challenge. So I think it's still Bennington's net. And for those who were worried that maybe he'd have to split starts or lose time, that worry seems to have dissolved for the moment.
Yeah. It seems like it's very much just like how his mindset is, and like whether he could kind of hold up. So now I guess he's in a good place. I should mention Buchnevich is on a nice streak now, 6 points in his last 4 games. He was super cold for a while before that. Like he had one goal, 2 assist game, like on January 11th, and aside from that, it was like mostly zeros before and after. But yeah, I guess that's why you hold on to your studs, and he's top line, top power play shooting. I think we had a question about Buchnevich at the time, and we were like, just hold, he'll be fine. And there you go. Not to pat myself on the back for something that I may or may not have said, but it sounds like something I would have said.
Yeah, that was our take. Like you can't worry about it. Buchnevich will be fine.
Okay, Tampa Bay, Kucherov is hot. Not if
So
you count
hot.
that skills competition, the passing competition where he wasn't trying. Like, what do you think? Okay, I guess it's not something we really need to talk about. It's not our type of show, but it's kind of funny when people are like, even on our Discord and on Twitter, like, what a disgrace. Like, not, to me, I just thought it was like funny. Like, this guy cracks me up. Like, he also had that speech making fun of the Habs fans and the Habs, like, after they won the cup. And I feel like a lot of people were like, this guy has no class. He's so. And it's like, to me, it's just like, I don't know. I think he's funny. I really like Kucherov. Like, this kind of stuff makes me like him more. But maybe that says more about me than it says about him. I like a
Uh,
troll.
yeah, like a troll is fun. Like I like like there's a YouTube video with the clip that says like this is honestly this is straight disrespectful. Like
Disrespectful of the NHL All-Star skills competition passing, which I like watched the clip and I was like, what is even this thing they're doing? Like he was like trying to hit targets. I don't even remember this. Like how long is this? Maybe that's also says something bad
right.
about
Was
me
he
that I don't
like
watch
in
these.
yeah, and like was he intentionally missing like I don't think on the first one he was intentionally missing, but like he didn't do well and like he's mad. and that's okay.
Or he was just like not trying hard because he was like, this is stupid. And if I don't play, then I'm going to get suspended for a game. So we did well in the actual All-Star game. Anyways, who cares? In the games that count, he has 10 points in his last 4 games. Kucherov is incredible. And he could do whatever he wants. As far as I'm concerned, I wish I had him on one of my fantasy teams.
I liked
Points in Hagel. Oh,
when he waved to the crowd at the end. Like that was like that's when he turned full heel. Like
yeah.
I appreciate a heel turn. Like
I
I don't know where I'd be interested to know where it came from, but maybe it's more fun not to know.
I mean, one of my favorite times in wrestling was when The Rock, after being like a hero like forever, turned into a bad guy again. And he like had his rock concerts and he was like making fun of the towns that he was in. Like, I don't know. It's like
I don't
very
remember
funny
the
to me.
rock oh, the
He called them
concert.
rock concerts.
Oh,
And he'd come
okay.
in and like have his guitar and just like sing songs making fun of the city he was in. And then my guy, the Hurricane, came and challenged him. And it's a good moment. This is like 20 years ago or something, probably. So okay, let's go next to actually no, let's take a break, Brian. We'll do our final break and then we'll finish this bad boy off. I've been having a great time. Hopefully, people have been enjoying the show. One last ad break, which may or may not be an ad break. When I listen to these lately, Brian, like no ads are being inserted, at least where I'm listening, where I'm downloading it from. So we gotta probably contact our network at some point and be like, shouldn't we be advertising something at some point? But
Remember
anyhow,
when we talked about like flipping on the political ads? Did you
that
see
did
that
nothing.
well, I actually did you see we got an email saying that we have to do it again?
Oh, I did no. Did we do that?
I don't think so.
Well, that's why. Well, anyway, so just sit tight for 3 seconds, and then you'll come back with the final part of this episode. See ya. Welcome back to Keeping Karlsson, Brian. We are on my hometown, Toronto Maple Leafs. Who's hot? Matthews is hot. Marner is hot. Morgan Riley is hot. Who's cold? Well, John Tavares is cold, but he's not listed here. He'll be fine. We already talked about. And then like Matthew Nyes, Martin Jones. Okay, I don't really see much to talk about here. It's the Leafs are so boring in fantasy at this point. I feel like everyone who's like you would have thought like Nyes and like Bertuzzi would be like really great streams being on the lines they get to go on, but not really.
There
Like it's
is
just kind of
a
like
there's a cold streak in Toronto.
which
That's
one?
like I'm gonna
Tavares?
it's up there with Evan Bouchard. No, Tavares is like I think he's gonna be fine. And I know we talked about this on the patron cast. Like the round table had the thought that maybe because the power
Okay.
play is going through Nylander, but Tavares still seems to be getting as many looks as he always has, and like they're just not going in.
Okay.
And so he's not
Can I
participating
guess?
in goals. Yeah,
Is it Nylander, the cold streak?
it is. He is pointless in 7 of his last 9. Just 4 points in his last 9 games, 2 multi-point outings that came back to back against Calgary and Vancouver. He's shooting like a little less too. Like I don't know if he's had a stretch. Like currently he's on a stretch of 5 games where he hasn't had more than 3 shots. And like while that's a weird thing to complain about, I don't know that he's been on a longer stretch this season where he's had fewer than 4 shots in consecutive games. I don't think anything's happening here. Like I'm not, but he's cold. So buy low.
He got his bag, and
Maybe you
now he
could
doesn't need
trade
to worry about it anymore.
Thomas Harley for William Nylander.
Okay. That's definitely a narrative, right? People are being like, now he got his big contract, so now he's not trying as hard.
Right. Yeah. I mean,
If
people
anything,
you should know better by now to try and throw that out there. But I'm as unworried. It's like this rivals Evan Bouchard as the least consequential cold streak, the least worrying cold streak.
fair enough. Yeah. Yeah, Leafs fans should be like fine. It should be like good rest. Save yourself for the playoffs. Save the points for when they matter at this point. Okay, Vancouver Canucks. So we mentioned Pew Suter is one of the hottest guys on the team right now. He had himself that hat trick versus St. Louis, and he had 2 assists in the last game before the break versus Columbus, playing on a line with Besser and JT Miller, also playing on the top power play. So of course he's not going to hold the top power play. It's pretty. I'd be shocked to not see Lindholm there with Patterson, Besser, Miller, and Quinn Hughes. But I don't see why Pew Suter can't stay on his line with Besser and Miller, right? Like Patterson can play with Lindholm and Mikheyev, and then Pew Suter can stay with Besser and Miller. Vancouver plays 4 times next week. So while I definitely don't expect this to be a long-term hot streak, I think for a stream for next week, anyways, like I'd hold and or grab him and see what he can do. I'm not expecting this to be a long-term thing, but while he's playing on that line, those are two amazing players, Besser
Yeah.
and Miller.
Yeah, I guess we'll have to see exactly how things play out with Lindholm in the lineup. But it might not be time to like toss Suter just yet. Like see if you yeah, see what he does in like the next game, and if it's something like if he holds good deployment, and see if he can do it again. I mean, he's never somebody, even with good deployment, Pius Suter is not somebody who you're like, oh yeah, he's locked in as a third wheel. Like it's not a guaranteed guy. He has 4 goals in his last 11 shots, and that's been like the majority of the points on this run. But one of them was on the power play, I guess. So let's see what happens with Suter as the lines shake out with Lindholm in the mix. But I'm like keep him for another game if you want, is all I'm saying. But don't expect long-term results from Suter.
Yeah. Also, Thatcher Demko is listed on a hot streak. Brian, let me throw. We didn't end up doing a shmore. One of the options for this episode that we tossed out to the patrons, we got them to vote, doing hot streaks and cold streaks, or we said we could do a mid-season Schmore goalies board. The result was like unanimously, pretty much, not unanimously, but like overwhelmingly to do this show. I have to ask if we did do a Schmore goalies board. I'd imagine Stuart Skinner would have been in tier one and probably Thatcher Demko also, right? Like, do you see a difference between Demko and Skinner at this point, or is it just two goalies on Canadian teams that are just scorching hot? The teams score a ton of goals. The goalies are doing great on their end.
No, I
Nice
well
season for
the
Demko.
the difference I see is like I would feel more comfortable relying on Demko than Skinner. Right? Like Skinner is more likely to end up maybe, I'm not saying, but it's just more likely to end up giving up 3 or 4 goals a game and still winning and still generally doing fine. And Demko, like he came off like he had a terrible season last year. I don't know if you remember, 901 save percentage, 44% quality starts, but he's responded to that with 66% quality starts. And basically, this is the best season of Demko's career right now. He's got 5 shutouts through 35 games and a 920 save percentage. So I'm curious to see how the second half goes for Demko, seeing as this is like a substantial a like substantially different high watermark than he's had before. I mean, he's been a 915 goalie before, but not with as many quality starts or shutouts. Actually, you know what I'm seeing, Elon, is like coming into this season, Demko had played 168 NHL games. He had 3 shutouts. This season already, 5.
Look
Look
at
at
this
that.
guy.
Yeah, so that's why I think I'd go Demko over Skinner, but yes, they are both on good teams who are offering a lot of run support and are both playing really well.
Yeah, I guess also Connor Hellebuck. Also, I guess Connor Hellebuck would be in tier one, obviously. He's been incredible. And I think Georgiev's actually leading the league in wins right now, Brian, and in
Oh,
starts.
Elon.
You hate him. It's okay. We can move on.
898. What did I say? 44% quality starts? Like wins only? Yeah. Like top tier. But if you need anything else from him, good luck.
Let me check. I'm just curious. Total fantasy points for goalies in the cupful, where we don't count
Okay.
wins too high. Let's see. Where's your guess as I bring it up? Who's gonna have like
You're
where
looking
is
at
Georgiev
total
gonna rank?
because
Total
volume
fantasy points.
right. So
Yeah.
I'm okay. This is a good point because I'm thinking
What's
of
your
leagues
guess?
with rates. Well, because of his volume and his wins, I'd say he's probably like fifth,
No, third. It's
third.
Demko, then Hellebuck, then
Yeah.
Georgiev. But it's a
Okay,
big
so
dip. It's like Demko, Hellebuck, big dip. Then there's a Georgiev and Sorokin. And by the way, a Skinner's way down. But if people recall, Skinner just totally crapped the bed and wasn't even playing that much to start the season. So it's like if you look in the last 30 days, I'm sure Skinner is right at the top.
all right. Point like Georgiev has value in volume leagues. Yes.
Yeah,
And I don't think I
unless
ever said
uh
otherwise.
unless Justice Sanunin uh still starts. We'll see.
Yeah.
That's we're gonna check in. It's gonna be fun. And I didn't mean to be combative. I thought it was just a fun a quick mini Schmore goalies board
Yeah.
of tier
Well,
one
I
right here.
enjoyed it. Thanks for bringing it to us.
Okay, let's go to the Canucks. No, we did the Canucks. Let's go to the Vegas Golden Knights. Who's hot? Nicholas Roy is hot. Holy cow. They talked about him on the show that with the Dauber writers. Yeah, 8 points in his last 4 games. So he's taken over from Eichel and is just crushing it. So he's obviously taking advantage of the fact that he's on a line now with Marchessault and Barbashev, basically taking the Eichel spot. Mark Stone, Chandler Stevenson, they're doing their thing with Paul Cotter. Is Nick Roy like someone you rush to grab? And by the way, I should also mention Barbashev, right? It's super hot. Like, so it's just both of them are teaming up, and Marsh. So it's just like this whole line is really good. I guess the question is do you just need any piece of this line until Eichel comes back, or is this like for sure, no chance Nick Roy can keep this up because he's never done anything like this in his career?
Yeah, he really hasn't. Like Nick Roy, oh, sorry. I closed my tab. Let me do that again. Yeah, Nick Roy really hasn't done this. Like he's been like a bottom six player or middle six, I guess would be the most generous interpretation of his deployment. Like second power play, 40-point guy, like never terribly offensive or taking a lot of shots. And yeah, he's broken out a little bit lately. For me, the question is the Eichel line still a good place to be without Jack Eichel? And I don't at all mean to like I am acknowledging that Jonathan Marchessault is there. So I guess like a parallel question here is whether Jonathan Marchessault on his own can like hold a line, right? Um, I don't know. Like I'm trying to figure out how I
So far,
feel
so good.
about this. What do you what's your gut?
I mean, I definitely wasn't expecting that the three hot players on Vegas would be Marsha, So, Barbashev, and Roy. So clearly that line is doing great right now. I think that I would, Vegas plays Tuesday, Thursday this coming week, and then not again for the rest of the week. So I think if you're in a close matchup, I think you could be okay dropping a Roy or a Barbashev, but maybe you
Yeah.
hold. I don't know.
I don't think it's gonna like my hunch is that it's not gonna continue. I'm just looking at like how they've been doing over the last like 7 games, like while Roy has been on this streak. They've been shooting 23% and their actual like, chances for and expected goals rates as a line haven't been awesome. So I'm gonna guess that this is like not sustainable, like not something that you might feel like you can ride for a long time, but you can ride it while it is, but like you said, Elon, if the schedule isn't going to work for you, I think you can let them go. And I'm gonna, Elon, am I crazy to include Barbashev in them?
Well, Barbashev's definitely had more value, and he'll stick on this line when Eichel's back, so it's not like as much of a short-term asset. He like is super hot right now. He went cold for a while, but before that, he was also on a great hot streak. So he's I mean, obviously it depends how desperate you are, but I like Barbashev definitely better than Nick Roy. So I guess it depends what kind of free agents you have out there.
Yeah, fair.
Yeah. By the way, Stone and Stevenson are on cold streaks, both pointless in their last three, but I'm not too worried. Oh, especially about Stone. But I think also like if you're in a deep league and Stevenson is out there because Stone obviously isn't out there, if you expect that Mark Stone will get going, probably you should expect that Stevenson, who's with him at even strength on the power play, will also get going to some extent. So that could be a reason to preemptively jump on Stevenson. Don't forget next week, like I said, only Tuesday, Thursday, but a lot of players only play 3 times, including the busy Saturday. So if you're adding someone that plays 3 times Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday, there's no difference because you're probably benching that person on Saturday anyway. So if you have room on Tuesday, Thursday, maybe now would be a good time to grab a Chandler Stevenson because I would expect that Mark Stone is not going to go pointless. And I think if Mark Stone gets a point, there's like a 75% chance on every point that Mark Stone gets that like I don't know if that math is exact
I
70%
actually,
chance.
I don't think so. I don't think that's true. Like Chandler Stevenson has like he's on a 46-point pace this season.
And what's
Does
Mark
that
Stone on pace
does
for?
I don't know. Yeah, let's see if the math checks
80.
out.
So
Okay.
maybe it's like 60% chance
Yeah,
that
like
if
55%
every
chance.
point, yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, we're talking about a stream. Anyway, okay. I agree with you.
Okay.
I'm not saying like go ham for Stevenson, but I do like him on the top power play and playing with Mark Stone. Washington Capitals. John Carlson is hot. You were high on John Carlson going into the season. These last 4 or 5 games, he's been looking really good. Four
Redemption.
points
No,
in
I'm
five
kidding.
games.
Yeah. I mean, it's not a coincidence. Carlson, by the way, has 9 points in his last 12. So like he's been looking like really good after looking really bad for most of the season. I was going to say a month, but who am I kidding? And Carlson's also taking almost like he's taking 2.5 shots per game in this stretch too. And I don't think it's like a huge coincidence that Carlson's doing well once Ovechkin has started doing well. I know she's back in the lineup. So I like he's someone who could see an uptick in his value the rest of the way. And in this streak, by the way, like just one power play point in the last 5 games while he's got these 4 points. Um, but I hope the power play points like I hope that's me saying that I hope he'll have more power play points to add to whatever he does at 5-on-5.
Yeah. And on the cold streak side, Tom Wilson is only 1 point in his last 5 games, Wilson has been playing on a line with, well, the lines have been changing a bit, but Ovi, Strome, and Wilson in the last game. But Wilson not on the top power play. It was Ovechkin, Strome, Kuznetsov, and Oshie. I guess there was Pacioretty there for a bit, but he got injured, and then like Kuznetsov took over. By the way, the word is Pacioretty. It's like just a short-term thing, not like aggravating the injury that kept him out for so long. So yeah, if Wilson's not on the top power play, obviously he's good in leagues that count your bangers, but also it's like his hits have been like fine, not like as incredible as they used to be lately. There was even a zero, Brian, can you believe it? A zero hit game versus Colorado. That's
Yeah,
very
like
rare.
Wilson has like slowed down in hits. Like they're still there, but he's slowed down. But and also shots. He only has 7 shots total in his last 8 games. And before that, like you look through his game log, you see like 5 shot, 7 shot, 4 shot games. And usually, like last season, he was taking 2.5 per game. So I don't know. Like maybe he took a nice vacation on the All-Star break and I'll come back hitting and shooting more again. But if not, then he's an easy snoozer.
Yeah. It's really hard to drop him though, because he's been like really valuable for so long. But I guess sometimes you have to
Yeah,
make those tough
I'd give him
calls.
a like Washington has a good schedule this week coming out of the break, so I'd give him like at least the first couple games to see if he is looking better and refreshed, and then make the call if I need to.
Mm. It is worth noting, if you haven't listened to yesterday's matchup maximizer, Washington, the very best playoff schedule, not even that close. So you could also consider Wilson as a good like buy low right now and just hope that he gets it going not later in the
True.
week, but by the playoffs.
Elon in Cupful,
Hit
I
me.
added TJ Oshie off waivers for
Yeah.
12 fab. No one
Hmm.
else bid. Am I the idiot?
No. Okay. First of all, who cares about the fab? Like, we don't
Well,
use
no, it's
fab
just
for
no, but it's not like I'm not mad about wasting fab. It just shows like my level of interest in Oshi. Like I wanted
like
him to the extent of 12 fab.
look, like Washington plays 4 times next week. Not many people do. So he's a great, even if you only keep him for next week, that's like a pretty great stream. You can't get someone much better. Also, Oshie has been really good since coming back from his injury. So, like, he's on the top power play. Like, I think it's a great ad. I think you should be happy that you got him. And I wouldn't worry about the fab. I think maybe a lot of people are just like taking their own all-star break and weren't paying too much attention. I can't. This just happened. Like I'm shocked. Like I would have thought that with his schedule coming up, everyone would want to get a piece of him. Like there's no one from Washington available for me. It looks like I could get Kuznetsov actually, which just shows how far he's fallen.
He was
But
just
there's
added in my division.
yeah, it's like caps are hard to come by. So I think you did good. Let's see if you win your matchup now.
Thanks.
And if you make the playoffs, good schedule, like I said. So
Yeah,
okay, we
good luck to me.
got 4 teams to go here. Let's
We
go to
can do it.
Winnipeg.
Yeah.
We already covered Monahan. We covered this team. So Perfetti's cold. Neil Pionk is cold. Not too shocking. Yeah, Monahan is hot. He gets to move over, bring his hot streak from Montreal. Laurent Brossoit is hot. Winnipeg's had great goaltending. But yeah, let's go to the Ducks.
Oh,
Troy Ter
I was
Oh,
gonna say
oh,
Kyle Connor with just a goal in 5 games since returning, but he's
oh
taken
yeah, what's
six
up with
shots.
that?
He's taken 6 shots 3 times. So I think he's okay.
Okay, this is
Like 21
another
shots, just a single goal. So I would say, yeah, this is like because he's coming back from like missing some time, I would say like it's a little more consequent or a little more worrisome than Bouchard and who was the other one?
Nylander.
Nylander, but like it's still up there in that tier.
Who would you prefer? Kyle Connor or Nylander? Rest of season.
Nylander. Would
Kyle
anybody
Connor's
would you prefer
Kyle Connor's
Connor?
really good.
He's really good, but like there's not a whole lot of guys better than Nylander right
Hmm. I think it's close. I'd have to think about it. Who's shooting more? 4 shots per game for Kyle Connor this season on average. Nylander is at, oh, I just looked up Alex Nylander. Get your head in the
Nylander's
game,
at
Nyland.
just 4.2 shots per game and is pacing for like 40 more points almost. 30
Yeah.
more points, 35 more points.
I could see it being close rest of the season.
Oh,
So
okay. I'm going
put
to
that down,
say
Trev.
Nylander outpaces Connor by at
Kyle
least
Connor.
5 points rest of season.
All right. Give me Nylander or give me Connor +5 and we'll see how it turns out. Okay, so where are we going next here? I guess after Toronto. Wait, we're not on Toronto. No, we did Winnipeg. Oh, that means we go to Anaheim. All right, back to the top. So Troy Terry's hot, man. All the people who were disappointed with him forever. enjoying some nice production here. 10 points in his last 6 games. So it's been a really great run. Three games in a row with goals. And it's continued to go along with Adam Henrique, who I know Lewis, I don't know if I don't want to say like put his neck out for, but like he was like saying how like he really thought that Henrique was good. And I think someone asked on Discord or something, being like, why are you so high on Henrique versus whoever else? But Henrique's kept it going. So Lewis was definitely right. And we're at 9 points in his last 6 games. I guess with Anaheim, it's like the idea is that I get that that's like a Shamsism, eh? Like I feel like I'm starting to get it from listening to so much short shifts. It's like he does a lot of like the idea of it is, or like I don't know. Anyways, it's good. I like it. The idea is that Henrique has been playing with Ryan Strome and Leo Carlsson, leaving Terry with Vetrano. I guess that's actually kind of new lines. So we'll see how things shake out coming after the break. But yeah, Henrique also getting a decent amount of power play times. Look like they've been going with 2 power plays. If he's a free agency, I'd be interested. Only a Friday game this week for Anaheim, though. So better than having only a Saturday game like a lot of teams, but maybe you have to drop him and make the tough call. But it would be tough to drop someone on such a good hot streak.
Yeah, I think I would yeah, maybe see if I can get the game out of Henry. Like it's all matchup dependent at this moment for Henrique. But if you like can justify holding him, I would.
Yeah. Okay. And then on
Are you
Arizona,
Oh, I was gonna
oh,
just ask quickly, like Olin Zellweger is playing on one of these top power play units, and like he has a single point on the power play, an assist. It came in his season debut and hasn't done anything since. But he has 4 shots in his last 2 games and is still deployed on that power play. Zellweger had 26 points in 36 games with San Diego before the call up. Are you at all
so it's
interested?
uh not so much, to be honest.
All right, let me
Like,
ask you a question then. Like there's
okay.
because Leo Carlson like is also someone we've been like, oh, can he do much? And like he hasn't done like a ton. And so if you were picking between Leo Carlson and Olin Zellweger, who would you pick?
I would definitely take Leo Carlson, I think, over Zellweger.
Okay.
Because
Why?
you know,
Shots?
I guess yeah, he's well, I mean, he's first of all higher pedigree, right? He's like I guess he's a little bit younger, but he's in a good situation. I don't know. I just to me it feels clear. Like like when is the last time a defenseman like Minchukov had a good run? But like Drysdale was on the top power play for a while, and Anaheim wasn't doing too much. I just feel like Leo Carlson could go off. Like even look at yeah, he's like cold. He had a hat trick earlier this season. He's had the potential to have some big games.
Yeah, it's
So
funny
I
because like my Carlson take is like we've been waiting for Leo Carlson to show up, and now we've seen a good run of games. The like load management is over, and he's healthy, and I'm not seeing a lot. So like he's not someone that I think you need to like. I like maybe he could do well, but I'm not like, oh yeah, the breakout is happening or imminent.
fair. I mean, I just also think of it as like I think like don't I'm not taking away anything away from Zellweger. Like he's a really great prospect and could like have a great career. Like I think Leo Carlson is a future superstar in the league, and like
Hmm.
might not be this season, but it's like I'd rather put my chips if I have to pick one. I'm putting my chips on the guy who I know is going to be like a stud for years to
Okay,
come.
I'm curious to like it's hard to
Check back
compare
in.
like Zellweger versus Carlson like for Trev and our accountability czar. But
We do
I'd
value
say
over replacement.
I wonder if yeah, I wonder if in the next 10 games I might prefer. I don't know. They're probably both not that rosterable. Okay, on to Arizona.
Okay, Keller and Cooley are hot, and Kesselring, Valimaki, and Carconi are cold. So yeah, I guess Logan Cooley is obviously the name that jumps out here. Clayton Keller, you're expecting him to be hot. Otherwise, why did you draft him so high? Cooley, 4 points in his last 4 games. So that's nice to see going into the break. Another rookie who I guess you would like more than Leo Carlson at this point, based on what we were just talking about. Arizona also has a really great schedule, not this week, but starting next week. They've got the Monday, Wednesday, Friday, Sunday. So if you want to look ahead, maybe now's a good time to just jump on a Logan Cooley if you think this is going to keep up. And why not? He's been playing actually with Keller and Genther, at least in the last game. Well, that was for like 4.5 minutes. So we'll see actually how things shake out. But Cooley is, like I said, yeah. I mean, another like Leo Carlson. I can see him going cold again. He's like young, whatever, like unpredictable. He's a rookie, but nice to see him on a run right now.
I'm just looking at the lines, like their performance against Carolina for Arizona in the last game before the break. The Schmaltz Keller McBain line, which was the second most used trio, was outshot 13-2 and out attempted 24-7. Like they were just wrecked. But what I'm really looking for here is to see where Barrett Hayton fits in, right? I brought him up already. Is it like it's a weird tweet from Craig Morgan, like non-contact jerseys today, good to go by Thursday. Like it seems like a short amount of time. Like I would have figured they were already like shedding the non-contact jerseys if they were really good to go Thursday. But it seems like there is a spot for Hayton to just waltz right into alongside Keller and Schmaltz. So let's see if that happens.
Yeah, that'll be definitely interesting to see how it shakes out if they could ever get fully healthy. Okay, and we finish off in Boston, one of the top teams in the league. Jeremy Swayman is hot, just coming off an All-Star appearance. He hugged all the goalies. The only goalie who didn't want to hug him back was Thatcher Demko. So maybe that could be the start of a fun rivalry if they play each other in the Stanley Cup Finals this year. The no hug matchup. Pasternak is hot. Charlie Coyle. I guess we've talked about him for a while. You turned around on Coyle in the last episode that we did together. You were like, okay, I guess if he's going to be playing on a line with Pasternak, even though actually in the last game, well, he was playing with Marchand, so just as good, but also on the, oh, actually, the last game also Coyle wasn't on the top power play. It was Marchand, JVR, Pasternak, and Zaka. So who even knows with these Bruins? I thought for sure Coyle was going to stick because it was going well. Maybe that's a sign that it won't stick, but obviously we'll get new lines coming out of the All-Star break. But yeah, I guess we've already talked about these about Charlie Coyle's hot streak for many episodes. I don't know if you have anything new to say about that.
No, I thought maybe the guy of interest that I'm not sure we've really gone that into is James Van Riemsdyk, who before the break was top line, top power play. So he's someone that you might want to look into if Boston games will help you. Had 3 points and 4 shots, a goal and 2 assists in that game against Philly, a wounded Philly, a struggling Philly. But Van Riemsdyk has been on the top unit for like 8 games now. Has only one power play point to show for it, but if he keeps getting turns there, we could be looking at him returning to the same value or similar value he had to start the season, which was really, really great, like super rosterable.
Yeah, he was looking good, and then I added him, and then he did nothing for 3 games, and then I dropped him, and then he had this goal and 2 assists in the game after I dropped him. So thanks, JVR. But thanks also everyone in the non-sarcastic voice for checking out this episode. Hope you liked it. We made it through all the teams. This has been a lot of fun. Yeah, if you like this content, subscribe to Keeping Karlsson. We got a lot more coming at you. Like I mentioned, we had a matchup maximizer earlier this week. There was a really fun episode of Short Shifts also earlier this week where Jeremy and Derek went through a bunch of players that are rostered in Cupful still and asked if like people should be dropping them or not. So that was really fun. Coming up, obviously, we've got 2 more short shifts. We'll do another, we're going to keep it all coming at you. Another matchup maximizer. Then Brian and I will be back with another mega show this coming Sunday. If you want to support the show, we'd love it. If you've never been a patron of Keeping Karlsson, you hear us talking about it all the time. Like, stop telling me about it. Like, just you could try it. You could even become a patron. And then if you don't like it, you could leave. But like our community is really fun and you can cancel at any time, right? So $5 a month, we give you all of our perks. So if that interests you at all, check out keepingkarlsson.com/patron. But with that, Brian, I think it's time to get out of here. So let's cue the outro music. Why don't you go ahead and read us the credits?
All right. This episode of the Keegan Carlson Fantasy Hockey Podcast was presented by Dauber Hockey and powered by our patrons, including our super valued super supporters Patty, Ricard, Dusty, David, Ryan, Tom, Zachary, Andrea, Sammy, Ivan, Philip, Aaron, Patrick, Jordan, Michael, Don, Roman, Top Cheese, Lucas, Ryan. Thank you all so much for your support. Shout out to the chat for being here too. Also, shout out to Kevin Bear, our cupful coordinator, who like if you want to get a taste of things right now of the cupful, and you might be interested in joining our wait list, there's a chance. There's a chance. I'm not a guarantee. But like Elon said, if you don't get a team, you can just leave. And like if that's the only reason you want to join. So thanks, Kevin, for being on top of all of that. Thank you to all of our short shifts team, Shams, Jeremy, Derek, and I'll also thank the Dauber crew. Oh, Lewis is just like implied for all you're doing to keep our feed full of wonderful, amazing things. GameDayTweets.com, courtesy of Elon and Shams being on Twitter, so you don't have to be. You can follow Short Shifts at Short Shifts KK if you do want to be. Logo art by BrandonWeeb.com. Outro music by Pat Roach. This episode was researched with help from Dauber Hockey, Frozen Tools, Dauber Prospects, Natural Stat Trick, Evolving Hockey, Cap Friendly, The Athletic, HockeyGoalies.org, Hockey Reference, Hockey Viz, Hockey Database, Elite Prospects, Yahoo. I'm going to say it one more time because we relied basically completely on them tonight. Frozen Tools, which is confusing because it's like the link is Frozen Pool, but they're called the Frozen Tools.
I mean,
I
most
need
people
a,
just like Google it
I
anyway.
need a
You'll find
usage
it.
guide for when to say Frozen Pool and when to say Frozen Tools.
Well, yeah, it's a great site, obviously powered by Dauber Hockey. So thanks to them. Brian, great job as always. It was a pleasure chatting with you for the last couple of hours. What should I spend my time doing for the next 7 days until I get to do it all over again?
Please make sure that you're doing everything you can to make sure that fantasy hockey is for everyone. And like while you're at it, you could see what you could do about hockey itself too.
It's hard, but yeah. What can I do? Give me
I
some
think
more specific action
I
items.
I feel I hope you ended it like before you said it's hard. That doesn't seem like a useful.
I'm just like not
It is
really too
hard.
involved. Like I don't know what I'm gonna do aside from
Okay.
like
You want specific you know what? You're right. I don't should I be more action oriented maybe?
next time be like do the following three things to make sure the fantasy hockey is for everyone. And then
I mean just be
anyways, whatever.
nice.
Be nice,
Just
exactly.
be nice.
I mean, that's all you can do. No,
Be
there's
nice,
probably more you can do. There's
guys.
for sure more you can do. But okay, I'm just being an idiot now. When I need to go even, so I don't know why.
Do you think I should add Logan Cooley now?
Yeah, yeah. I
Like for
mean,
basically next week?
can you fit him in this week?
When
I
do
don't
they
know.
play again?
Could we let's chat
Thursday.
on Discord.
On
I'll
Thursday.
talk to you soon. But yeah, thanks. Great show. See you, pal.
Uh, okay.
Bye.
Okay, good